first session of the annual Nottingham Business Meeting in order. My name is Dawn Fernald. I'm your town moderator. Now please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before you take your seat, or you're already sitting, that's right, I'd like you all to just take a moment to introduce yourselves to the people around you. These are your neighbors. This is our community. I'd ask that we all keep that in mind.
I've only noticed
All right. So thank you again. Just as we conduct our business today, remember the kind person you just introduced yourself to. We will begin first with some introductions. Today, serving as my assistant moderator is Bonnie Winona McKinnon. We have Johan Kerkhoff, who will be up here taking time for us. Supervisors of the checklist are here with us. We have Deanne Decker, Alexandra Neff. No Ruth Ann Fuller today, but we have Terry, and why am I blanking on your last name right now? Yankis, Terry Yankis. Our ballot clerks today, again, Johan Kerkhoff, Maureen O'Connor, Catherine and Roger Fredan. We have our town clerk who will be taking our minutes, so please state your name and your address when you come to the microphone, loud and clear for her. Our legal counsel today is Madeline Matulis with Upton and Hatfield. With us to present our warrant articles and help answer your questions are our town administrator, Ellen White, Board of Select Persons Chair, John Moran, Vice Chair, Tim Dabrio, Select Persons, Matt Sherlin, Steve Welch, and John Decker. We also have our department heads today, Police Chief Vaughn Woodman, Fire Chief Matt Curry, Department of Public Works Director Steve Rollins, Parks and Recreation Director Courtney DeBall. We have our budget committee with us today. We have Chair Owen Fran Gray, Vice Chair Mike Kelly. Joining us in the front row are our budget committee members, or some of them I see. We have Karen Quinn, Sandra Jones, Charlotte Fife, and Donna Danis. Not with us right now are Jeff Morrison, Jillian Eldridge, Robert Kelly. They may join us. Some of the folks that I have just introduced, while not registered voters in the town of Nottingham, are an integral part of today's presentations. Therefore, I'm granting them permission to speak at this meeting. They are as follows: Ellen White, Madeline Matulis, Steve Rollins, Courtney DeBall, and Neil Santos will be joining us later on from the PLIA board. In addition to all of our elected officials and department heads, I see many town employees, including the majority of our police department, most of whom are also residents of this town with us today, fire department as well. Please join me in thanking all of our elected officials and town employees for all of their hard work and for being here to support us. For those of you who may be new or unfamiliar with the SB2 process, I will give the down and dirty cliff notes in hopes that I can make this meeting one that you'll all feel welcome to participate in. As registered Nottingham voters, we are the legislative body. Over the past several months, our town department heads and election officials have worked with the Board of Select Persons to put together a budget that anticipates the needs for the next fiscal year. The Board of Selectmen and department heads then work with our budget committee to refine all of those cost items. The majority of those budget needs are then put into the operating budget, which is Article 7 today. Some larger one-time expenditures may have been written as a separate warrant article. Those articles are 8 through 18 today. Citizens may also draft warrant articles. Assuming they obtain 25 signatures of registered voters and submit it by the appropriate date, We have Articles 19 through 26 today. The Budget Committee then holds a public hearing. Once feedback is received from the public, the Budget Committee and the Board of Selectmen each vote to recommend or not recommend any items with a tax impact. You will find those recommendations underneath each article along with the expected tax impact should the article pass as written on Election Day. The warrant is then finalized and posted as you all see it today. Today, you, the legislative body, through me, the moderator, will be given the opportunity to discuss and debate Articles 7 through 26. All articles will be placed on the ballot. We are not moving or voting to accept the articles as they are currently written. However, the legislative body may make a motion to amend these warrant articles. Assuming there is a second motion, I will allow non-repetitive discussion and respectful debate of the amendment. Then I will call for a vote of the amendment. If the yeas have it, this means that you have changed how the warrant article will appear on the ballot. Town Election Day, which is the second session of our business meeting. All warrants can be amended except those whose wording is prescribed by law and with some limitations. I will point those restrictions out as we move along. While we can change the purpose or the appropriation of a warrant article, we cannot change the subject matter of any warrant article. So if there's a warrant article to appropriate $100,000 for an ambulance, we cannot change that the warrant article is to purchase an ambulance. Zoning articles, number 2 through 7, cannot be amended. Zoning articles may only be amended at the Planning Board's public hearing, which was held earlier this month. The Department of Revenue Administration considers the following amendments from the floor of the meeting as a change in the subject matter of the warrant article and will disallow them. Naming agents to expend capital reserve funds or town-funded trust funds when the article as posted in the warrant did not name agents. Changing an article from appropriating money for a capital reserve or trust fund to expending the money in the current fiscal year. In other words, an amendment to buy the police cruiser, now instead of putting the money in the police cruiser capital reserve fund or vice versa. Designating an appropriation article as non-lapsing when the article as posted did not. Since we are a town with a budget committee, our amendments are also subject to the 10% rule. This means that at this meeting, we cannot appropriate a total amount which exceeds the total recommended budget by the Budget Committee. Again, the town's lawyer is here to help us with legal guidance on all those fancy exceptions and limitations. Moderator's rules. No person shall speak during any meeting without leave of the moderator, nor when any person is speaking is in order, and all persons shall be silent at the desire of the moderator, RSA 40:7. You'll hear this if that is happening. The moderator will take the articles in the order that they appear on the warrant articles unless the moderator announces the intent to take articles out of order, which will require the approval from the legislative body. Presenters of warrant articles will have a 5-minute time limit unless prior arrangements have been made with the moderator. The moderator shall give permission to speak to non-resident department heads, legal counsel, and any other persons with information pertinent to the warrants at her discretion. A presenter may make additional comments on the article after all other speakers have spoken or when the moderator directs a question, comment from the legislative body to them. Speakers from the legislative body must show their voting card. Does everyone in the room have an orange voting card? No, show me your voting cards. I did ask that anyone who doesn't have a voter card to sit in the back row on the left side here, just to make it easier for our counters, excluding anyone I've already mentioned by name. You must show your voting card, state your name and street address every time you step to the microphone. Speakers will have a 3-minute time limit. We have timekeeper here today. We'll try to give you a 30-second warning, let you know when to stop. We ask that you try really hard at that 30-second warning to wrap it up. We hate to cut anyone off if possible. A reasonable amount of relevant and non-repetitive debate will be allowed from the legislative body. All registered voters who wish to address the article will speak before anyone speaks twice. No uncivil behavior will be tolerated, including but not limited to disrespectful language, false accusations, or personal attacks. If any person shall behave in a disorderly manner and after notice from the moderator persist in such behavior, or shall in any way disturb the meeting or willfully violate any rule of proceeding, the moderator may command any constable or police officer or any legal voter of the town to remove such a disorderly person from the meeting and detain such person until the business is finished. RSA 40:9. Elected officials, election officials, including the moderator, are also citizens with the same voting rights and privileges granted to each citizen. However, when expressing any personal opinions, they must separate themselves from that office by stepping to the floor and speaking from a microphone designated for the public. Any amendment to a warrant must be submitted to the moderator in writing prior to a vote being taken on the amendment. The moderator will not accept negative motions. Negative motions are motions that require a no vote to vote in the affirmative, such as I move that we not amend the budget. There must be a motion and a second on the floor for each amendment. Only one amendment on the floor at a time. The moderator will try to ensure that the contents of all motions and amendments are fully understood. Please do not hesitate to ask the moderator if what you're voting on is not clearly understood. Voting will be again by voter cards, except where required by statute or by proper request. You must be seated for the ballot clerks to count your vote. Voters may request a yes/no secret ballot. Prior to vote, the moderator must receive the signatures of 5 present registered voters requesting a secret ballot on a given motion. RSA 40:4-A. Voters may also request a secret ballot after a vote done by voter card. Immediately after the division vote on a given motion, 7 present registered voters may stand and request a yes or no re-vote by secret ballot. RSA 40:4B. All votes are subject to reconsideration during the meeting unless a motion to invoke RSA 40:10 is voted in the affirmative regarding that article. A motion to invoke RSA 40:10 restricts reconsideration of a warrant article and may be done at any time after an article has been moved. However, the moderator will not recognize the motion if she feels the voters have not yet had an adequate opportunity to discuss an issue. Results of all votes will be announced by the moderator. Persons wishing to film or photograph the meeting shall do so from the back of the room or other area designated by the moderator so as not to serve as a disruption or a distraction. And without further ado, Article 1, to choose by ballot all necessary town officers for the ensuing year. I believe I got a list today. Yes. We have Board of Selectmen, 1 position for 3-year term, Adam Ryan and Charlotte Fife. We have Budget Committee, 3 positions for 3-year terms, Karen Quinn and James Stevens. Cemetery of the Trustees, we have 1 position for a 3-year term, Peter Corvo. Library Trustees, 2 positions for 3-year term, Jennifer Phillips and Kate Knight Dupuy. Planning Board, 2 positions for 3-year term, Daniel Arsenault and Adam Ryan. Planning Board, 1 position for 1-year term, Glenn Griswold. Trustee of the Trust Funds, 1 position for a 3-year term, Denise Blaha. Zoning Board of Adjustments, Gary Anderson, Zoning Board of Adjustments, 2 positions for 3-year term, Gary Anderson. School Board, 1 position for a 3-year term, Cami Van Drager Leshner. School District Clerk, 1 position for a 2-year term, Carolyn Grimes. I have also been asked to let you all know that the Planning Board is looking for residents to join a subcommittee to work on updating our master plan. A master plan is a planning document that serves to guide the overall character, physical form, growth, and development of a community. No experience is needed. People of all backgrounds are encouraged to volunteer. Articles 2 through 6 today are zoning articles. Amending them does not fall under the business of this meeting. Zoning warrants can only be amended at the Planning Board's public hearing. Having said that, if the legislative body is interested in having the Planning Board Chair come up and walk us through the articles and entertain some questions, I will make a motion that we allow discussion of those articles to be discussed following Article 26, so as to not interfere with the business we do have to undertake today. If the motion fails, we will move right on to Article 7 and not revisit Articles 2, 3, 6. Can I have a second for the motion to move discussion of Planning Board articles till the end of the meeting?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your card and say aye. Motion carries. Article 7, shall the town raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrants or as amended by vote for the first session, for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $5,057,788. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $4,878,584, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the town or by law. Or the governing body may hold 1 special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10 and 16? To take up, it's been a long time since I've read Roman numerals, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Select Board recommends this appropriation 5-0-0. Budget Committee recommends this appropriation 5-2-0. The estimated tax impact is $3.06 per thousand of property valuation. If the article does not pass, the valuation is $2.85 per thousand of property valuation. Speaking today to Article 7 will be our Budget Committee Chair, Owen Friend Gray, and Board of Selectmen Representative Tim DeBrio.
Thank you, Don. So, just wanted to give some overarching kind of highlights on the operating budget that the Budget Committee primarily reviewed. I can't actually read that from here, so you're all going to have to bear with me. But I know it's located in RSA 32. And the primary points we want to make coming out of RSA 32 is that this is a high level budgeting, is how the RSA is written for an SB2, meaning that the bottom line is really what's being voted on. How individual lines move within the budget is the purview of the folks running the budget. We also want to highlight, as we've been learning about this tax cap, that all warrants and operating budget, which is a warrant, and all items that have a tax impact are items, thank you, Charlotte, that affect the tax cap. So it's not just a 4% on the operating budget, it is a 4% on the operating budget and all warrants. And to that end, we are in a 4% tax cap. And just a quick reminder, the Budget Committee makes recommendations. It's the legislative body, so you, the voters, who make the final decision. But as previously mentioned, in this meeting, that can't change by more than 10% of the given value. So I wanted to cover on the next slide sort of the significant items that we heard about and talked through for the town. One of the biggest one would be the eligibility for raises. Last year on the default budget, town employees did not receive any raise compensations, and that was something we heard from all of the different department heads as being an issue and something that was making it difficult for them to hire and retain good help. Road paving and maintenance was a major issue, especially with that warrant being voted down last year, so that was a large concern in the budget. Building repairs and maintenance is something else that we heard quite a bit about. We were fortunate that there were some anticipated reductions in electricity and fuel charges going forward, so that gave us a little bit of wiggle room within the budget, but not quite as much, of course, as you'd ever hope. But we also did manage to put back in the police cruiser annual purchase, which was something that needed to be bypassed last year. The police cruisers need to be replaced roughly once every 5 years. There's 5 cruisers, so trying to replace them on an annual basis is the most cost-effective methodology. In the default budget, we weren't able to do that. And then also the social services that had been a warrant article last year, because of the significant amount of support that warrant article received, and it's an annual expense, the Budget Committee put that back into the budget. So I wanted to also go over quickly in the next slide that what really this per 1,000 property valuation, I'm out of order. So just a quick summary, total budget, the operating budget, which is warrant article 7, 5.06 million, proposed taxable warrants, or I should really say recommended taxable warrants, so the warrants that the Budget Committee recommended total $423,000 for a total proposed town budget for 2025 of $5.48 million, which works out to a proposed tax increase rate of 3.81%. On the next slide, you'll see what I had started to explain a second ago, which is the per 1,000 property valuation. Trying to put a little bit of context to that so folks understand sort of what that means. I find just a concept like 21 cents per thousand to be a bit hard to understand in real world numbers. So there are 2 examples that I put in to this. It is the highest value for a tax impact per warrant outside of the operating budget, Article 7, and the lowest. So the first example shows what 1 cent per 1,000 on property valuation is. The average assessed value of a property in Nottingham, land with a residence, is $353,100. So that works out for the penny per thousand on a property valuation of $3.53, increase to the following year's tax bill. 34 cents per 1,000, which is the highest value as noted, works out to $120.05 on the average tax bill for the following year. I would like to point out also that the intent is for this presentation, when completed, to go on the town website so people can review it further. So don't be concerned trying to write all this down or look at this as you're doing it. This is going to be put out to the public for informational purposes to increase that understanding by everybody. On the next slide, I highlighted the sort of the difference in the proposed versus default budget. That would be the 306 versus the 285. Same math as the previous slide, but just wanted folks to understand what that would mean for people in the various impacts and at the various valuation levels. And if I can find them here, I might be able to read the numbers. There we go. So what that means roughly is if you look at the 306 and the 285, that's a 21-cent differential on the proposed versus the default. So using three different valuations of $200,000, that $353,100, which is the town average, and then the higher of $500,000 for assessed value, you see that the tax implication of proposed versus default at the 200 is $42. At the 353,100 is $74.15, and at the 500,000 assessed value, excuse me, it is $105 is the difference. Another way to look at it, if you're trying to do it in your head, that I find might be a little easier for folks to understand, is you can also look at that 21 cents per thousand as $21 per 100,000. So if you're trying to do the math on a different scale on 100,000, that's a slightly easier number maybe to use. And then on the next slide, I wanted to review and give some explanation for the warrant articles that the Budget Committee did not support. The Budget Committee overall supported all of the warrant articles except for two. One of them, Article 22, we felt was repetitious with the other road maintenance article because the other road maintenance article references the same stretch of Stevens Hill Road to be paved. In addition, adding those additional funds into the budget or the warrant articles would have actually put us over the tax cap, so we couldn't recommend it without cutting other items from the budget. But really the primary reason was that it was already included in a different warrant article. And then the other Article 24, I believe, which is the community newsletter, the Budget Committee in general supported the concept of the community newsletter and liked it, but really struggled to find where $10,000 could be cut out of the budget in other locations that the budget already wasn't stressed very thinly. So that's something that the Budget Committee couldn't recommend unless they reduced the budget, because that put us over the 4% tax cap. So just wanted to make sure it was understood that overall the thought process wasn't necessarily against the community newsletter, it was more just a lack of space within the existing cap was the primary focus of the discussion. And then just some more details, and this is really more for future reference in case anybody feels like they need some reading material to help them fall asleep at night. Here are the exact RSA quotes for the different items that we talked about, tax rates, budgeting, how it's a bottom dollar budget warrant that we work underneath, but just wanted to add those in for extra clarification. I think that's all I put in. Should be. We'll find out. And I will publish it. Goes to the next one.
Tim, do you have anything to add?
Well, I first want to thank our town administrator, Ellen White, and all of the department heads this past year. Was definitely challenging running with the default budget, but they did a fantastic job running the departments, keeping as much staff on hand as they could, and hopefully this year we can focus on continuing to give some merit increases to our current staff and focus on hiring and filling positions that we still have holes in. But just also to give some perspective on how the tax cap has been calculated. For the past 2 years, we've been doing it, I guess, the correct way, as it was passed by warrant in 2021, I believe, by the voters, is that the first couple of years it was focused just on the operating budget. And so what would happen is that the Budget Committee and the Select Board would move items to the warrant articles and then just keep that operating budget within that 4% increase. And that's not the way it's supposed to be done. So the challenge for the past couple of years has been including all of the warrant articles plus the operating budget for that 4% tax cap. Last year, with the default budget and a number of warrant articles not passing, our total appropriations were $385,883 less than 2023. So then our 4% cap is built upon something that was less than what we ran on in 2023. What we're proposing for warrant articles and the operating budget, which is within the 4% tax cap for 2025, is actually only about $80,000 more than what we ran on in 2021, and it's $150,000 more than appropriations in 2022. So I think that the select board did a good job of trying to keep our budget lean, but at the same time trying to be realistic. There's a lot of things that we would like to do with town buildings, maintenance and improvement. Also, there's a number of roads that need improvements. So I feel that we've done a good job with trying to propose something that's meaningful and realistic for 2025.
I just wanted to mention that we are successfully live on Channel 22 and YouTube. So we even have 24 voters watching online. Before I open the floor for discussion, I just want to remind us all that we are not here to change individual line items in the budget. You can change the bottom line, but we cannot edit individual lines, so be cognizant of that. And if you are proposing an amendment that changes the bottom line, I will need that written with the math done for me. So at this point, I will go ahead and open the floor for questions, comments, or amendments. Oh, so close.
Skip Severance, 340 Stage Road.
And unfortunately, this microphone does require you speaking really loud and being really close. So, yeah.
How's that? All right. I have several questions. You want them all at once? I have several questions. Do you want them all at once?
Sure.
Okay. I was wondering, and I think you kind of just said it in a different way, but the executive line seems to have gone up quite a bit, and the personnel administration line seems to go up a bit. Is that because of the salary increases or whatever? That essentially that.
Okay. You want to speak to that real quick?
Sure. So yeah, that was $35,000 of that increase to the merit compensation pool.
Okay.
That was eliminated last year in the default budget.
Okay. My next question.
I'm sorry. Interrupted. One other thing that was added into the operating budget this year, because one of the warrant articles that did not pass last year was for the revaluation, to add $20,000 to the revaluation for the town. That we're required to do that, and that's this year. So what's remaining that fund right now is not enough to actually fund it. So we actually added it into the operating budget this year as well to fund the revaluation of 2025.
Okay.
We do not have, that was, budget hearing was the process to discuss individual lines. Here, we're just discussing the bottom line.
Yeah.
I asked the audience to please refrain from shouting.
So if I need help on this one. Dawn, you said we can't change the line item numbers?
Correct.
Or the
Correct. We do not have, that was, budget hearing was the process to discuss individual lines. Here, we're just discussing the bottom line.
Yeah.
I asked the audience to please refrain from shouting.
So if, I need help on this one. Dawn, you said we can't change the line item numbers?
Correct.
Or the
Correct. We do not have, that was, budget hearing was the process to discuss individual lines. Here, we're just discussing the bottom line.
Yeah.
I asked the audience to please refrain from shouting.
So if,
It would be advisory only. So you you're certainly welcome to,
Should I say my name again?
you're certainly welcome to inform us as to why you'd like to raise the bottom line by an amount, but as far as what the Board of Selectmen does afterwards, it's just advisory. You are in fact increasing the budget by that amount.
Okay. All right. So I would like to increase the bottom line. Let me see. By $25,000 for the purposes of additionally funding Parks and Recreation. Their appropriation that they submitted was $149,000. The budget committee came down to $134,960. Just like to try and get that back.
Okay, if you could go ahead and write that down for me, and then we'll make it an official motion, and we'll get a second.
Okay.
Okay. Paper, pen? Do you need paper and pen?
I have paper here.
We have paper up here.
I got paper.
And just an update, channel 22 is now down, but we'll keep working on it. But YouTube Live is up. YouTube Live is up. Text your friends and neighbors who might be home watching, they can watch on YouTube Live. Oh man, you're worse than my doctor. I know. That would be helpful.
Did you want me to type that?
All right, I will do the math for you.
Oh. Sorry.
Okay. All right, I have an amendment on the floor to Article 7 to increase the budget from $5,057,588 to I thought you were like AIing my next number for me. That would have been helpful. $5,082,788. Do I have a second? Second? Can you state your name or card? What's that?
Card number is 38, Jen Phillips.
Jen Phillips? Skip made the motion. Jen is seconding the motion. Further discussion? Skip, do you have a seat so anyone else can speak to it? No further discussion?
Hi, so as we know, last
Can I
year.
have your name? and
Oh,
address?
Thomas Bukevich, 2 Washington Lane,
Thank you.
69
Thank
dudes.
you.
Anyways, last year, the voters voted down the proposed budget and y'all got stuck with the default budget. I think you did an excellent job running the town. Everything seems to be going pretty well. I would caution against increasing the proposed budget any further. You're risking it getting voted down again. Last year, a 4% increase was proposed and the voters voted it down. Again, we're proposing a 4% increase and now 25,000 more on top of that. I don't know why we would expect the voters to do anything different than they did last year and vote it down again. So I would caution people not to be greedy and inflate this budget and risk us having to go back to the default budget.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else? Seeing there's, oh, we're getting up, we're just moving. Okay. See a voter card, please.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So is this, are you asking if there's any questions regarding his recommendation?
Correct, we're only discussing the amendment right now. Yep. Anyone have questions or comments in regards to this amendment? All right, all those in favor of amending Article 7, please raise your card and say aye. Ballot clerks, can I get a count, please?
I'm gonna take that far side and then, yeah. This side. Hold them up high so we can count them, please. Oh, no, not the front, just.
All those opposed, please raise your card. Can I get a count of the opposing votes, please? No, someone else was counting in front. P, are you counting in front?
No, she's not in touch. I was getting that other one before. No, I did not. You need that. Get the cup first. Yep.
Just lose your number.
Anybody else? Right.
I am gonna ask you to put your cards down. It was 2, so I would like a recount, if that's all right. All those in favor of passing the amendment, please raise your cards. Aye. Thank you. Can I have one person counting the front and then one person counting each side?
Yes.
3 counters, please. You're all changing your votes on me. Maybe I shouldn't have done this. This is gonna be just as bad. Can I try? I can add, but I wanna make sure. Okay, please put your cards down. All those opposed to the amendment, please raise your cards. Aye, thank you.
Nope, I did the front. You're just doing your section.
technically I would have been the tiebreaker, but I already voted, therefore the amendment fails. Not that I would have, my one vote would have changed it, if that makes any sense. I would have been the extra vote one way or the other, so. So it was 31 to 31. If it had been 31 to 31 and I hadn't voted, I would have been the tiebreaker, but I already was included in that, so. So because it's a straight tie, it failed, motion fails. See how important it is for you to come and vote? All right, any other conversation in regards to Article 7? Seeing none, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Linda Prashad, 16 Hemlock Court. Including non-town organizations in the operating budget is unethical, in my opinion. The town should not assume that all non-town organizations support each taxpayer. If any taxpayers support one or more of the organizations, they should have the opportunity to donate personally. I am not aware of the fire department, police department utilizing any of these organizations on a regular basis. It's unethical to donate taxpayer money to organizations that are not regularly utilized by town officials, fire department, police department, town center personnel. Taxpayer money is to be spent on services for all taxpayers and taxpayer roads. And that is under the social services section.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion on Article 7? Moving on.
Madam Moderator, could I invoke Article 40:10 on Article 7?
You can. Can I get a second to invoke? Second from Sandra Jones. We have a motion on the floor to invoke 40:10, meaning we will not discuss this again at any other point in the meeting. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Article 7 will be put on the ballot as written. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $45,000 for the purpose of purchasing the necessary fuel, supplies, equipment, and maintenance to run the ambulance and billing services for 2025, and to authorize the withdrawal of $45,000 from the ambulance and equipment replacement special revenue fund created for this purpose. Majority vote required. The Select Board recommends this appropriation 5-0. The Budget Committee recommends this appropriation 7-0. The estimated tax impact is $0 per thousand of property valuation. We have Fire Chief Matt Curry and Board of Selectmen Fire Department Liaison Matt Sherland here with us today. If there's any discussion you'd like to. No? Nothing? All right. Any discussion from the floor for Article 8? All right, moving along. Article 8 will move to the ballot as written.
Madam Moderator,
Yes?
could I invoke Article 40:10 and make a motion?
Yes, you can. We have a motion from Tim DeBrio to invoke Article 40:10. Do I have a second? I have a lot. How about Gary Anderson right there in the front row? All those in favor of invoking Article 40:10, please raise your card, say aye. Aye. The motion carries. I will let you say no if you want to say no. No's? All right. Doesn't look like it. Article 9, to see if the town, Article 8, going to the ballot is written, I already said that, not discussing it again. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 to be added to the fire vehicle SCBA Capital Reserve Fund previously established, majority vote required. The Select Board recommends this appropriation 5-0. The Budget Committee recommends this appropriation 7-0. The estimated tax impact is 4 cents per thousand of property valuation. Again, we have Fire Chief Matt Curry, Board of Selectmen Matt Sherland. Either of you have anything to say in regards to this? No? All
As you
right.
can see on the slide, the current fund balance, $541,985. The planned future purchase in 2023 return gain to build up funds for a larger piece of equipment as required. The tanker is probably the next one, or maybe the forestry unit as it comes up based on age.
Great. Any discussion from the floor? All right, Article 9, we'll go to the ballot as written.
Could I make a motion to invoke Article 40:10
Yes, you can, Jim DeBrio.
on Article 9?
Can I get a second? All right, got Owen Friend Gray for a second. All those in favor of invoking Article 4010 for Article 9? All right, the ayes have it. Article 10, to see if the town will vote to appoint the select board as agents to expend from the Fire Vehicle SCBA Capital Reserve Fund previously established in 2005. Majority vote required. All right, Matt Sherlin, do you have anything to say to this?
Upon review of a couple of the capital reserve funds that were established, the select board was not specifically identified as agents to expend. This just allows the ability to expend from the fund before waiting for coming back to the legislative body if, you know, a major piece of equipment was damaged that wasn't an insurance claim or something like that. And don't really see it being much more of a cleanup issue than we're looking to randomly buy fire pieces of equipment midway through the year.
Any discussion from the floor?
Hi, Tom Bukarich, Washington Lane. I have a question. So this is to give the select board the authority to expend from this fund. Does the fire department have authority to expend from this fund?
Tom, if you don't mind, you can direct your questions to the moderator, please.
Actually, Dawn, that is unconstitutional. I refer to you, Moms for Liberty versus Broward County Schools.
Tom, we have
What?
the,
Why don't you talk to the town attorney and the town
Tom?
administrator who have received the document with all the necessary case
Tom?
law? I'd
Tom, I
appreciate you
really-
not interrupting me with
Tom?
your unconstitutional policies.
Tom, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave, and I really don't wanna do that, so if you can please refrain, we
Well,
have
stop
rules.
making up unconstitutional policy.
Thank you, Tom, you can have a seat. Tom, that's your first warning, so if another outburst occurs, I am gonna have to have you leave the meeting.
Like, seriously.
Okay, any further discussion in regards to Article 10? And seeing no more discussion, the article will move as written.
Could I make a motion to invoke Article 40:10?
You can.
Article 10.
Do I have a second? Thank you. Did you get a second? I saw this gentleman here first. What's your name? Ken Costello. There we go. All those in favor? Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be added to the Police Technology Equipment Expendable Trust Fund previously established. Majority vote required. The Select Board recommends this appropriation 5-0. The Budget Committee recommends this appropriation 7-0. The estimated tax impact is 1 cent per thousand of property valuation. We have Police Chief Vaughn Woodman here with us to speak to this.
I'll be quick. You probably don't want to hear me talk, but I just wanted to lower the mic about a foot. How's it going, Nottingham? It's a really good fund. You guys have done it for our department for 3 years. I'd like to just say it comes in handy, obviously, when we need equipment, like this year, we were able to purchase a radar unit with it. It also funds part of our body-worn cameras. We get half through a grant, and the other half comes from the tech fund. So I would just appreciate more support for it and continue to it. So if you guys have any questions, I'm here now. Cool, thank you so much.
Further discussion from the floor? All right. Article 10, Article 11, I keep wanting to go backwards. Article 11 will be on the ballot as written.
I'd like to make a motion to invoke Article 40:10 on Article 11.
We got a second from Karen Quinn to invoke 4010 on Article 11. Further discussion? I guess technically good. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Article 12, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $285,000 for highway reconstruction and maintenance work on town roads to include but not limited to Lucas Pond Road, Stevens Hill Road, Deerfield Road, or other roads in Nottingham if a priority arises. This is a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32(7) and will not lapse till the work is complete or not later than 1 year after the end of fiscal year 2025, whichever occurs earlier. Majority vote required. The Select Board recommends this appropriation 5-0. The Budget Committee recommends this appropriation 6-1. The estimated tax impact is 34 cents per thousand of property valuation. We have Steve Rollins, the Highway Director, with us here today, as well as Board of Selectman John Decker. Anything you'd like to say to the article? Actually, I don't see Steve. I think Steve is plowing. Sorry, Steve is plowing for us.
Basically, this is just a standard warrant article we try to do every year. To make sure that we maintain our roads. So it's, as stated here, the focus is for Lucas Pond, Stevens Hill, and Deerfield roads. But obviously, as things potentially change, emergency, whatever, we may have to refocus that, but we just want to make sure we keep our roads up to date. Madam Moderator, if I could also add, in the presentation earlier, we talked about overlapping warrants. This was the one that our warrant 22 we had spoken of was overlapping with. I just wanted to highlight that again for folks. Thank you.
Right. Any discussion from the floor?
So Bates, 30 Landry. My card. For those who would like to see this road reconstruction done, I think you're in a tough spot because of the overlap with Article 22. I think this warrant article should be amended to remove Stevens Hill Road from it. I have it written here. If you don't remove it, we have some surly voters in this town. They voted down the reconstruction warrant article last year. They stuck us with the default budget last year. If you have something duplicative, they'll say, oh, this is duplicative, let's vote down both of them. Or if later in this meeting you zero out warrant article number 22, because, oh, those imperial people, crossing out a citizen's petition, I'm angry, I'm going to vote against it. I think the safer course for getting this road reconstruction work done is to cross out Stevens Hill and reduce it by the appropriate amount. Do you want me to read this, or?
No, I will just take that and I will read it. I do want to just point out, just because we all keep referring to the other article, that I reached out to the drafter of the article. He actually now feels it's redundant. While it can't be withdrawn, he didn't wish to speak to it because he felt like this current article already covers it. I can't speak to his other 24 petitioners. And I do not know if the other article fails, it would be no means no for Stevens Hill on this anyway. Is that correct? So either zeroing out the citizen petition warrant article or voting down would then mean no means no in regards to Stephen Hill, even if the other article passes. So I don't know if that would change your amendment at all. Nope. So I have an amendment to Article 12 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $185,000 for highway reconstruction and maintenance work on town roads to include but not limited to Lucas Pond Road, Deerfield Road, or other roads in Nottingham if a priority arises. This is a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32.7 and will not lapse until the work is complete or not later than 1 year after the end of fiscal year 2025, whichever occurs first. I have a motion from Doug Bates. Do I have a second? Second from, can you hold up your voter card there for me? Second from Mary Bates. Further discussion?
Yeah, I might add something, just, if I remember correctly, speaking from here is from budget committee, not personal. If I remember correctly, that the way Article 12 is structured, this gives the Board of Selectmen the ability to move these funds within the town. So say there was another road that maybe washed out from heavy rains, they would be able to direct those funds there. So from my understanding, deleting the Stevens Hill Road in specific doesn't really change the nature of this article at all. It just changes the wording, and they could still use those funds on Stevens Hill, even if it isn't specifically called out. I think the rub that we had at our meeting was that on, maybe not the rub, but the point on Article 22 is those funds can only be used on Stevens Hill Road. So, I don't understand exactly, Doug, what you're going for, but if I understood you correctly, it might make more sense to try and zero out the amount on Article 22, and then we wouldn't have an overlap.
I want to again remind you, if you zero it out and it passes, then that would still mean no, so maybe to $1 if that was the anticipated goal, just to point that out.
And that would, I think that would clarify, from my remembering from the meeting, that would kind of
Correct.
get everything in the right.
Yep, so Article 22, if you change the appropriation to $1 and this passed, the first article passed, you could still take care of Stevens Hill. So if you zeroed it out or it got voted down, the other article, then you wouldn't even be able to use any of the funds from Article 12 to repair Stevens Hill. So just to make that clear. Was that clear enough? Did everyone understand that? I know it's a little convoluted.
For clarification, I think in one of the earlier articles, Doug might have written that the order in which warrant articles are presented matters. So if this article is first on the warrant and is approved with Stevens Hill in the name, even though the subsequent one fails the first one approved, like, does that matter, like the order in which they were done?
If the order does matter, but in this case, because the Article 22, I think it is, would come after the fact, that is the last vote on that road specifically, so.
So the order matters.
Works against you. Skip?
Skip 7340 Stage Road. I understand what Doug is talking about. To me, it seems extremely confusing. It seems like to me we have roads that are in need of help this year anyway, and so if you leave both articles the same way they are, there might be extra money for other roads to get done as a result of Article 12 having money in there for Stevens Hill Road and the other article for Stevens Hill Road.
Yep. Further discussion?
To answer Michael Kelly's question, the issue is not about what makes budgeting
Doug,
sense.
if you don't mind, just always speaking through the moderator, not directly to that.
But I am addressing his question that he addressed to me.
You speak through the moderator.
Hi, moderator,
I
I'm
know.
addressing his
I know.
question that he
It's
addressed
a
to me.
rule.
It's not about what makes budgeting sense, it's what makes psychological sense for the voters. As you hear, there's confusion about it. And we already saw last year there were a lot of people really wanting to vote no. So if you really want these roads to get the reconstruction, I think you need to amend it.
Thank you. Further comment from the floor? I know you.
I'm sorry,
Name
Skip
and-
Severance,
Thank you.
340 Stage Road. It seems like the appropriate action here, and unfortunately for the order, seems like we ought to be deleting one of these warrant articles, to Doug's point. But we can't at the moment, because this is the one that's up there, and I don't think we want to delete this particular warrant article, because this will
We
pay.
cannot actually delete any warrant
Well,
articles.
okay, but you can make it go to zero,
Or a dollar,
or a dollar,
or a dollar, or any
whatever.
other amount you feel is
Right.
appropriate. Correct.
And there's no change to this to delete Stevens Hill Road if you delete Stevens Hill Road for money-wise. So we haven't really done anything with this particular amendment. It would seem as if
Now you're starting to confuse me.
well, it would seem as if the cost for Stevens Hill Road is, whatever that other number is,
Again, I just want,
hundred, what? I'm
but
sorry.
just want to point out that because you have an article that has specific language to a specific road, that's where we're getting the tricky part there. So if you're assuming that the voters are going to vote yes to both, but
I
if
don't
they vote-
assume anything.
Right. I thought, and what you were just saying assumes that the voter would vote yes. If it's no, then
What I'm suggesting is if we delete Stevens Hill Road from, oh, I'm on the wrong page.
from the further article,
From the article that we're,
that would be
hang
changing,
on,
that
that
would
we're-
be changing the subject matter.
no, hang on. From the article that we're discussing,
Okay,
if we remove Stevens Hill Road
right.
from that, we should be removing money from that article also. So if we take the amount,
I
whatever it
think
is.
he did, you did, took $100,000 out.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that portion. I'll go sit down, thank you.
Thank you.
Donna Davis, 24 Russell.
Sorry.
Donna Davis, 24 Russell.
I'm wondering, did you show your voter card? Sorry, I might have missed it. I gotta make sure. Uh-oh.
Under your chair.
Sorry, Don.
So I was gonna ask about what Skip was just saying, like, can we just take out Stevens Hill Road from this? But I wouldn't see that we necessarily have to take money out, because the warrant article also says not limited to, and it says or other roads in Nottingham if a priority arises.
Correct, and that was a question I asked our attorney, is if the other article failed, it would still prevent them from doing anything on Stevens.
And that's what I was trying to understand, because she said the last one matters. So if the last one failed, then it wouldn't matter.
It wouldn't matter,
Right?
right.
That
It wouldn't
in
matter if
essence, it would say,
Stevens-
no, we can't do Stevens.
Right, it wouldn't matter if it said Stevens Hill, and it wouldn't matter if it didn't say Stevens Hill.
Correct, okay. So is it possible that for this one, we just strike Stevens Hill Road, the language, the name, but leave the money there because we need it? But then if we want to use it on Stevens Hill, because that's a priority, then that could be done. Yeah,
You take it. So if they take Stevens Hill out
of 12.
of 12, but the other article fails.
It doesn't say Stevens Hill Road here anymore.
So if you can take, I think if we're worried about what it looks like on the ballot, when people are voting, that they see Stevens Hill Road here, and then also on the last, or Article 22, you could remove Stevens Hill Road from 12. It does say or other roads,
That's my point.
but if Article 22 were to fail, even though this says or other roads, either way, you wouldn't be able to spend any money on Stevens Hill.
I don't
Road.
understand that because
Because the voters are saying, no, you can't.
because it says Stevens Hill and the other one.
But if you can remove Stevens Hill Road from this, and it wouldn't prevent, say Article 22 failed, that would prevent Stevens Hill Road, but removing it from Article 12 sort of has the same effect because it says or other roads.
Okay.
So,
Seems like
Okay.
putting $1 on the other one. Yeah.
Well, I think order matters too, right? So, yeah.
All right. No further discussion on the amendment. I am going to look for all those in favor to amend Article 12 to remove Stevens Hill, and $100,000. Please vote aye. All those opposed? Motion fails. Further discussion on Article 12? All right. Article 12 will be on the ballot as written.
If I don't make a motion to invoke that certain article, once we get to Article 22, can we come back to discuss this one? Just
Yeah, we can
Okay.
do that. Okay. Just note, does anyone else want to invoke Article 4010? Or are we good to maybe leaving this open in case we need to? All right, perfect. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $464,000 to purchase a new grader for the highway department, and to authorize the withdrawal of $282,000 from the highway truck capital reserve fund established for this purpose. The balance of $182,000 to come from unassigned fund balance. Majority vote required. The select board recommends this appropriation 5-0. The budget committee recommends this appropriation 7-0. The estimated tax impact is $0 per thousand of property valuation. John Decker, speak to this.
Yeah, so this article is to replace the current grader, which is a 2006 Komatsu 675. It cost us over $20,000 to repair it this past year. So we'll use the state bid process for purchasing this. And the highway truck capital reserve fund has $286,725-ish in it, with the rest of the money coming from the unfunded balance, the reserve fund balance. So it will have no impact on taxes. And we're currently renting a grader right now, while we've had the other one under repairs.
Any discussion from the floor?
Prashadini, 16 Camelot Court. So I wrote to Tim Decker recently about
John Decker?
John Decker, regarding, there's a government site to bid on, I don't know, to bid on equipment, used equipment versus buying new. And it seems like $464,000 is a lot of money to spend for a grader.
Yep, grader.
A grader. So could John explain to me the state bid process that he just announced that they're gonna use?
John, would you like to respond to that?
Am I allowed to look at
I
him?
cannot explain that process, I'm sorry.
Still back and forth.
Can someone explain what the state bid process is? Is it for only new equipment? Do they get a discount?
Are you asking the RFP process? What, are you asking the RFP process or the state bid, you said?
The state bid process, that's what John said.
Sorry, John's a little quiet. Can anyone speak to this? Doesn't. Ellen, are you? Ellen might be coming to speak to that. Thank you.
Sorry about the technology difficulties. So the state bid process, the town's purchasing policy requires us to do competitive bidding. Sealed bid processes for certain purchases, major equipment would be included. The state of New Hampshire DOT and other departments go through a formal bidding process. our purchasing policy allows us to use that because the research has already been done. So what they'll do is they'll pick a specific manufacturer or dealership to purchase this type of equipment. So because motor graders are used by state, it's something that we can jump on as a municipality. We can jump on their bidding process. So whoever the contracted vendor is awarded by the state, the town would then use. So with this specific grader replacement, the public works director, or the highway director, Steve Rollins, has spec'd out one that will fit the needs of Nottingham. So we would use a state bid pricing to get the base unit, and then there would be certain implements, attachments added to it to fit our needs. So the initial quote that he got was for, I think, a replacement Komatsu, but we've also looked at John Deere and Cat as additional options. Those would all be firmed up once we got the affirmative purchasing power from the voters. So $464,000, I think, was the highest amount, but it could be less. I say that with caution because there are going to be tariffs implemented, so if it's a foreign product, price increases could be reflected in the purchasing price. So we're just going on initial estimates that he got in December, and those were updating estimates that had been obtained in prior years from the prior public works director when it was originally added to the CIP plan. Does that make sense?
It does make sense,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay.
So, could we just wait to see if someone else has a question first, and then you can come back up, because I saw some other people waiting, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Just your name and address, please, for the record.
Jill Eldridge, 130
You have to speak pretty close and loud to that microphone, unfortunately.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Jill Eldridge, 130 Dial Road. Our town faces many pressing financial difficulties and priorities, and I'm curious if the Board of Selectmen can elaborate a little further about why they felt that the grader took the highest priority for use of these funds.
John or somebody on the board would like to address that?
Our current grader has been in repair, and we've been renting a grader. We do have, I don't know, but several miles of dirt roads that do need to be maintained. And plowed. Graded, maintained, plowed, all that. So yeah, this is a big expense for the town, but it is a well-used expense. And it was on the CIP. Originally it was deemed to be replaced in 2026, but we felt that it was important to be replaced this year due to our, the condition of our current grader.
I'm 61, Chris Evans.
Address, please, as well.
What's that?
Your address for the record as well.
Martha's Way, 9 Martha's Way. I live on a dirt road, and I would like to say that the Public Works has done an awesome job at taking care of our road, and I actually talk to these guys all the time as I'm driving up and down the road. They're on our road many times, and you know, if we all owned a car that was a 2006 vintage model, and it was in the shop most of the time and you couldn't use it, then we would replace it. I think this is appropriate to use this. We have a lot of dirt roads in the town, and that updating our equipment to have the Public Works be able to do their job properly is appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Merrill Dwyer, 158 Brown Pond Road. I have two questions. First of all, what is the estimated useful life of a new grader? And also, what is the annual cost of renting that we currently pay, the annual cost of renting a grader?
Thank you. Someone on the board would like to answer that?
So the useful life is approximately 20 years. And what was the other question? I'm sorry.
What is the annual cost of renting a grader? that we are now paying?
So the one that we're renting, we kind of got a really good deal, and we've only been renting it for the hours we're actually using. So they've been very kind to us. I don't know what the actual cost would be to rent it continuously.
My point, I guess, is to compare, is it worth continuing to rent or to do this expenditure? A question.
Yeah, they were allowing us to rent while they were repairing, so they're kind of getting two funds from us. That rental agreement would be different if we were permanently renting. This was just like a short-term loaner from the shop that we were getting the other one fixed at.
Okay, thank you.
Linda Bouchardney, 16 Camelot Court.
Thank you.
So is it the policy of the town to only purchase new equipment?
No, we've purchased some used equipment for the highway department, even trucks, whatever, for graders specifically. It's a little bit tough where some of them, if they come from like a large highway project, you don't know the exact usage. It could be right back in the problem we're in now with one that has significant issues. Most of the large machinery has been moved to electronics based on like automated, road leveling and everything like that, and that's where we're having a lot of problems with the electronics on it, not the mechanicals, like the unit runs and drives, but the past one had an electronic issue with them going reverse. It's kind of hard to.
Thank you.
If no one else has it.
Anyone else have a question or comment? Okay.
Okay, so my son is in the mechanical world, and he lives in a different state, but buying a brand-new grader comes with all the technology that brand-new graders come with, and they're much harder to repair than even a 2-year-old grader or a 4-year-old grader, and if it has a lifespan of 20 years, I think that's a better option, but that, again, is my opinion.
Thank you. Further questions, discussion? All right, let's see. Oh, are you coming up?
Cindy Herrick, 86 Spiegel. Are we gonna sell the one that's being repaired, the old one, to cover some of the costs?
Someone answer that? Okay. Oh, there you go. Ellen's good.
Ellen, you got it? Go for it.
The plan is, we just repaired the current grader. I think total cost, it was around $20,000 in repairs in 2024. So we're hoping that we can still get more useful life out of it. We currently have 4 grader operators within the highway department, including the highway director himself. So with the amount of dirt roads that we have, we would like to continue to use that. So we would be running 2, which would mean that more roads would be maintained on a regular basis.
So the old unit will require continuous maintenance?
Well, it depends. I mean, I think that's going to be at the discretion of the highway director. If it starts getting into more costly repairs, like we don't anticipate spending $20,000 every year to continue to repair it. We're hoping that the repair that was just done will give it a little bit more life. We just don't know how much more. That's the guarantee that we can't assure.
Have we negotiated warranty and any repair requirements for a period of time for the new one?
The new one actually hasn't been procured yet. As I was saying earlier, we still have to figure out exactly which make we're going with, which vendor. Initially, we thought that we had that set up, but then there were some questionable price changes with the manufacturer that he was originally looking at. So those details will all be fine-tuned once we get the purchasing power.
But they're all included in the request for quote?
They will be, correct.
They will be, but they're not.
We haven't entered into a purchase agreement or contract to purchase one specific unit yet.
So warranties and further maintenance could cost more than the $464,000.
We cannot expend more than what's allowed by the voters.
So how do we get warranty coverage if it's not already negotiated a part of the proposal?
I think she already answered the question, so I'm going to let someone else have the microphone for a little bit.
The new unit will come with a warranty standard from the manufacturer. Are you asking if we're going to put an extended warranty on it?
Or what are the potential maintenance costs beyond the extended warranty? It may be an extended warranty is warranted, but if it hasn't been discussed and it's not part of the RFP, how do we know?
I think earlier they said that Steve Rollins, our highway director, has done some of the legwork and that's how he acquired the number. So they just haven't put the official request for pricing out, at which point obviously they would probably include warranty, it sounds like, in all of those items. So, and again, they can't expend more than what they've asked for, but it sounds like they've done the legwork to come up with that number, as it's kind of specific. So, thank you.
Okay.
Further discussion? All right. Seeing no further discussion, Article 13 will be on the ballot as written.
Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion to invoke Article 40:10 on Article 13.
Second by Matt Sherlin. All those in favor of invoking Article 40:10? Okay. All those opposed? Motion carries. That was RSA 4010 I moved. RSA 4010 on Article 13. Article 13 will not be discussed further today. Article 14, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $70,000 to be added to the Highway Truck Capital Reserve Fund previously established. Majority vote required. The Select Board recommends this appropriation 5-0. The Budget Committee recommends this appropriation 7-0. The estimated tax impact is 8 cents per thousand of property valuation. John Decker, I'll turn the floor over to you.
So this is to add 70,000 to capital reserve fund, basically. Assuming we purchase a new grader, we're going to take $282,000 out of the account that has $286,000 in it. So we'd be adding another 70 for basically as a savings account for future purchases. Any other questions on that?
Questions, comments from the floor? All right, seeing none, Article 14 will be on the ballot as written.
I'd like to make a motion to invoke Article 40:10.
You're the one throwing me off. RSA. Do I have a second for RSA 4010?
I'm sorry.
Sandra Jones, well, I was doing it too now. All those in favor of invoking RSA 4010? All those opposed? The ayes have it. Article 14 will move to the ballot as written without further discussion. Article 15, to see if the town will vote to appoint the Select Board as agents to expend from the Highway Truck Capital Reserve Fund previously established in 1984. Majority vote required. John Decker?
All right, so this is another housekeeping item similar to what Matt referred to about SCBA. Just to make the Select Board the agents to expend on the Capital Reserve Fund. Well, yeah, on an emergency basis, not that weird.
Instead of waiting for town meeting, basically.
Questions? Oh, we have skipped the heading.
Skip Severance, 340 Stage Road. This article and Article 10, to me, sounds like it's something that would happen in a city. I don't think we're a city. This seems like a town council would do in some way, shape, or form. So I'm against this particular article as written, but we can't delete it here, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, based on what the selectmen have said, I'd like to add a phrase in here after Capital Reserve Fund, if an emergency arises, which they've said is the case for this, and that just clarifies that it's not at any point in time. So,
Sure. I'm just going to check because agents are one of those funky words. All right. So we have a an amendment to Article 10, or 15. Showed Article 10 on here. Article 15, to add the sentence, if an emergency arises. So it would now read, to see if the town will vote to appoint the select board as agents to expend from the highway truck capital reserve fund if an emergency arises, previously established in 1984, majority vote required. Are you making a motion?
I'm making a motion for that, although I guess you can put the words at the end. I'm not an English major, so. The fund was the thing that was previously established, so it probably should go at the end of the sentence.
Thought that as I was reading it. We'll just move it tonight after the 1984 if it passes.
Yeah.
Right, do I have a second? Gary Anderson, second. Discussion on the amendment?
Yeah, Tom Bukevich, 2 Washington Lane. I got a question on this. Sorry, I have a question on this. The wording about an emergency arising, does the town have a formal procedure for like declaring an emergency?
I think if the need presented itself, the Board of Selectmen would have to go through and hold the required public hearings and request an emergency appropriation if it was not a planned purchase in the current budget year.
Under the current rules or under this proposed?
That's under statute. That's under their authority.
So I think he's asking if they add if an emergency arises, or is
We
that allow them to
would
skip
have to
that
create,
process?
yeah, we would have to create
A new process.
a new process.
Well, but the amendment doesn't say that a declared emergency or anything like that. It just says if an emergency arises, and that's kind of just left up to anybody's random definition.
But
So
it's
I'm
only
wondering if you-
specific to the highway truck capital reserve fund, so only pieces of highway department equipment and trucks that could be purchased under that fund. So it wouldn't just be like they could just arbitrarily expend it towards anything, it would have to be because
I
a truck broke
understand that,
down or.
You're asking would there be sort of a requirement of what those emergency
Yeah.
situations would entail?
Yes.
And would they put any procedure in place for procedure for what constitutes an emergency?
I would assume so, but that would be the board's
Well,
decision.
well, let's not assume. Is there some particular change to this amendment wording that we could make that would strengthen it to require that?
So we do have to first, unless Skip wanted to withdraw the amendment, I have to first allow the public to vote this way, and then if you want to add specific verbiage, we can do that as another
I'm
amendment.
just trying to figure out if I want to support this or not. But maybe the lawyer can tell us if this is strong enough wording. Would this just be an arbitrary, we say it's an emergency and we can do it, or does they have to go through a formal process?
I think as amended, it would be the discretion of the board as agents to expend what an emergency constitutes. So it would be whatever the board feels is an emergency as agents to expend.
So it really wouldn't restrict them any more than not having that amendment.
So if you want to go ahead and add language, you want to sit down and come up with language to it, we can then go ahead and put that in.
No, I just wanted my follow-up question answered by the lawyer.
Okay, those answers. Thank you.
No, my follow-up question was, so this amendment, does it restrict the board any more than the current language?
I think it requires them to determine whether an emergency exists in their discretion.
Okay, thank you.
Gary Anderson, 50 Guile Road. I seconded this motion really more to move this along. I'm not in agreement with it. Because I
Thanks
feel
for your
it's just
honesty.
like, I feel it's exactly, it's much like any other capital reserve fund, and we're allowing the selectmen to make proper decision with that fund, whether it's highway, whether it's whatever we're talking about.
And to Tom's point, the sentence still is just, still leaving it to their discretion, so.
Sorry, the reason I brought that, Skip Severance, 340 State Drive. The reason I brought that forward was This is different language that has now been brought into the warrant. I don't think we've seen this before. So something has changed to allow the capability for this to happen, and I'm not sure what happened unless it was what was attempted to do with the road grader prior to this timeframe.
Are you asking like what's the?
New language has appeared. I'm just wondering why.
Your new language or
No.
this warrant in general is new
This
language?
Article 10 and Article 15 both have the same language, and it's new that I'm aware of in what we've done in the past for any capital reserve funds. Excuse me, this is covering 2 of them. I think there's probably only 2 anyway, but anyway, how come this language now appears?
I think Ellen already touched on it, but do you want to
Well, no.
touch again as to why we heard before that the procedure would require special hearings to be, if an emergency arose, it requires a time process of like having to hold a public hearing, get public when we may have an emergency. So this gives them that leverage if, oh my gosh, we have a snowstorm coming, but something just broke down.
But it also gives them the leverage to use the capital reserve funds without the vote of the public. That bothers me.
Okay.
And that's why I put it in there, and that's why I used the language that I did.
Perfect.
To clarify, perhaps.
Okay.
Okay.
Would you like me to clarify? Okay, so this amendment actually came at the advice of our legal counsel. And where it came into play is when we were talking about replacing the grader and potentially making the purchase with leftover funds that were remaining from the 2024 budget. We did some research into how this capital reserve fund was originally established, and it was done in 1984, back before there was really any prescribed statutory language establishing capital reserve fund and expendable trust funds. It just said, hey, shall you, the voters, put $10,000 into a highway truck fund, and that was it. Now we're required to put language in there that says for the purpose of, and normally you would name agents to expend. We've done that on some of the newly created expendable trust funds like the Police Technology Equipment Fund and like the Invasive Species Expendable Trust Fund. The Board of Selectmen have been named agents to expend when those funds were established or shortly after. So upon legal review, we found that both the SCBA Capital Reserve Fund and this one, there was no named agents to expend. So it just was something that she recommended that we do for quote-unquote housekeeping purposes. And really it's up to you, to the voters, to decide whether or not you think the Board of Selectmen should have that authority, or if you would like to have those purchases come through voter approval through this town meeting process. And just to add a tiny bit to it, it's one of the articles that throws a red flag for me, because in moderator trainings, agents, not allowing the public to change the agents is one of those things we have to watch for. So I think to what Ellen said, most of the time when these funds are established, it does establish the agent with it. So I think what I hear her saying is we didn't do that, so this is really housekeeping. Usually they do have an agent attached to them, like whose job it is to expend those. And there's a public trust that capital reserve is used for, those items. So that helps clarify, hopefully.
Thank you, Ellen. Skip Severn, 340 State Road. Thank you for that. That cleared it up for me. But now the question I have is, wouldn't it be better just to change the capital reserve funds to match what happens today? The language in the capital reserve funds, bring that before the voters and do it that way? I don't know.
I don't think are you saying to bring the whole capital reserve, to amend the whole article as it's written?
I'm not saying that for this time frame. It just appears that if these 2 funds are the only funds that don't have the new words in them, wouldn't it be better to bring those capital reserve fund wording to upgrade it?
Almost to
before
reestablishing
reestablish, yeah.
with the proper wording.
Yep.
I think that would be.
That might be cleaner. I don't know. Because we're not getting rid of the problem, as I see it. We're not getting rid of the problem by doing this.
Anyone want to respond to that, or?
I thought they were all worded the same, but
see it when they found this original one in 1984. It was back in town meeting form, so it was basically written out on a napkin, and somebody agreed, and 12 people voted on it, or something like that. At the time, it was pretty small, so
Yeah.
this verbiage is bringing it up to,
Well, I
you
don't,
have the trust fund now, or just,
yeah,
all it is just making it similar to the newer ones we created.
yeah, I just don't see this bringing the verbiage up to what today's standards are. It seems like we should bring the verbiage up to the today's standards and then vote on that, but that's not for this time frame. But
If Ellen comes up with something, we'll have her comment, otherwise we'll let
Yeah, that's
anyone
fine.
else take the microphone.
Okay, so the answer to that is that if we were to change the language to make it more clarifying what the fund is and the purpose and who the agents to expend are, it would become a 2/3 vote required under RSA 35:1. So I think that's the only difference between how it's here on the warrant as presented versus if we were to change it.
Merrill Dwyer, Brown Pond Road. I just want to clarify, this, if we vote yes on this warrant article, this is moving forward, this is this year and moving forward.
So we are not here to vote on the warrant. Right now, we're
Oh, I
voting
know
on the
that.
amendment, right?
I understand,
Yeah,
yeah.
yes,
Oh,
so you mean
okay.
the amendment? Yes, if we here on the floor pass the amendment to add the sentence, if emergency arises, it'll move to the ballot that way.
And this will be for this year, this coming year and future years?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, this is, yes, permanent change.
Hi, Thomas Bukevich, 2 Washington Lane. I have a couple
Your
questions.
card.
Yeah, it's right there.
Perfect.
I have a couple follow-up questions, just about kind of where this came from. Ellen said that this was kind of done with advice from the legal counsel, and I'm just wondering, is that the new legal counsel, or is this the old firm, Upton and Hatfield?
Currently, we are still using Upton and Hatfield. So.
Okay. So that kind of suspicious advice then. And then also,
Tom,
The-
we're gonna watch that.
I'm understanding that the kind of the goal of this warrant article was to help out situations where they wanted to spend money on the road grader a few months ago, right? Is that kind of the idea?
I think that's what she said, is when
Right.
the attention arose.
Right, so that seems to, that was, at the end of the year, we found out we had some budget surplus, a couple $100,000 or so, and so the idea was to spend it on the grader, but we couldn't do that, so we have to make this change. So I'm wondering, is an unanticipated budget surplus considered an emergency?
Anyone want to respond?
No, but the broken grader, and then we were resorted to renting one, and we weren't, at the time, weren't sure, they had no success path on restoring our grader, so we had no timeline of how long we were gonna be renting, so we were trying to look ahead. I mean, the last couple of years, when you look, springtime hits, Facebook gets flooded, everybody's complaining, this place is a mud bar, we're not doing this, we're not doing this. We are trying to take care of what we have, and a grader is a major piece of equipment. We're not looking to buy a new grader because it's a new color or fancy. The other one is becoming a liability and reducing our impact of actually maintaining what we have. And moving forward, if we can run two for maybe a year or two before it becomes too expensive, great, let's try to get caught up on the deferred maintenance we've had for many, many years. Previous years, we didn't even have operators who could run a grader. We would have to basically hire out or contract out somebody to run our grader for us. We now have operators. We have enough people that can run graders. We can run 2 graders. With the other equipment we have, let's try to get ahead of the dirt road problems that we have, so we're not seeing, we're not just hitting a road twice a year. We can hit it 3 times a year, but we have miles and miles. I don't know if it's quite 50% is dirt roads, and we're trying to maintain what we have. That's it. We're not looking to go out and be like, oh, this truck looks a little rusty, let's fix it. We're just trying to help the town out where we can.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you for that. Yeah, my concern wasn't really the road grader. I understand the importance of that and
Tom, I'm just
everything.
gonna ask you one second. We do have an amendment on the floor that we actually, I feel like we just got a little bit of
And I'm
force.
about to
Is it
say
in
something
regard to
incredibly relevant.
So to the, if an emergency arises,
My main concern is not the road grader, the need of any of these things. My main concern is it seems like this warrant article, the legislative body, that being us, the people, are kind of giving up some of our power over spending it's a little bit less asking us for permission and a little bit more giving the Board of Selectmen permission to do things without asking us at town meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, I agree with what you're saying there, Tom. Just for the fire truck part too, like, this would, I think generally our whole mindset is that we would wait until, you know, we do wanna, if the fire truck's still working and we're looking to just improve, we will bring it before the voters. If this was more where we thought we had an actual emergency, broken, or renting, we're just losing money. So in our minds, we were just trying to do that. But if it was running and we just wanted to improve as per the CIP, it would have just come before the voters as a normal item.
Okay, so we have an motion on the floor to amend Article 15. Can I get a vote of all those in favor of the amendment? Can I get a, put them down, let me see the no's. Yeah, I'm gonna need a count. Okay, everybody cards down. All those in favor as of the amendment to add the sentence, if an emergency arises, please raise your card. Keep them up. Okay, put your cards down. All those opposed to the amendment, cards up. Can I have a voter count, a total voter count for everyone,
Yes.
please?
Catherine.
41 yeses and 26 noes, so the motion carries. So is there any further discussion on the article now as amended? Seeing none, Article 15 will be printed on the ballot to see if the town will vote to appoint the select board as agents to expend from the Highway Truck Capital Reserve Fund previously established in 1984 if an emergency arises. Majority vote required.
Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion to invoke RSA 40:10 on Article 15.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Jeff Morrison, second. All those in favor of invoking RSA 40:10? All those opposed? Motion carries. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $18,000 to be added to the town building maintenance and repair expendable trust fund previously established. Majority vote required. The select board recommends this appropriation 5-0. The budget committee recommends this appropriation 7-0. The estimated tax impact is 2 cents per thousand of property valuation. The board of selectmen, Steve Welch with us to talk to it.
Sure. So, as you all know, we have a bunch of aging buildings in our town, require maintenance on a, well, I'd like to say fairly regular basis. I think we've done a fairly poor job of doing that, but we'd like to add this small amount so that we can continue to support. And let's see what I got here that I was just handed. Yeah. I mean, currently, we do have $115,000 in that fund. We just added another $18,000 hopefully to it. As you all know, we have a lot of buildings that need some attention. Appreciate your vote in favor.
Gary Anderson, 50 Guile Road. Yeah, just wanted to say thanks for the planning part of this and putting continued maintenance on our facilities, as I think most of us know. We've looked at that, and we have a ways to go, so thank you.
I'd like to thank the committee for the hard work they did in identifying the issues that we have there.
Tom Lukevich, Washington Lane. I just have a question. If there's so much maintenance and repairs and stuff that needs to be done, how come there's still $115,000 in the fund?
We're working hard, and we can only do what we can do in the course of the year, so.
Okay.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? All right.
Madam Moderator, can I just add one thing?
Yes.
Tom, to your point, there were over, I think it was $270,000, $260,000 in expenses that we've identified. Mr. Trant, who's been working with the town for the past year as our sort of building maintenance guy, he basically took the facility report that came out 2 years ago and outlined a time frame as far as which projects need to be done immediately because they're going to cost the town more in the long run if we don't take care of them now, and then things that can wait a year or two. But the total in those projects over the next 3 years is about $260,000. So the Board of Selectmen is hopeful to start working on those things this year and the coming years.
Thank you, Tim. Further discussion? All right, seeing none, Article 16 will be printed on the ballot as written.
I'd like to make a motion to invoke RSA 40:10 on Article 16.
I have a second. Donna Danis. All those in favor of invoking RSA 40:10? All those opposed? Motion carries. And I am gonna let us take a quick 5 to 10 minute break right here before we move on to our next article, so.
Appreciate your time.
Bring the meeting back to order, please. Please take your seats. Article 17, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be added to the invasive species prevention and eradication removal expendable trust fund previously established. Majority vote required. The select board recommends this appropriation 5-0. The budget committee recommends this appropriation 5-2. The estimated tax impact is 1 cent per thousand of property valuation. have with us today Pawtuckaway Lake Improvement Association board member and our invasive species guru, Pawtuckaway, Neil Santos, somewhere, yep. And as mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, Neil is not a resident, but I've given him permission to speak today.
Neil Santos, 63 Shore Drive. I'm domiciled here for 6 months of the year, so I'm as much a resident here, non-voting resident as anywhere else.
I was trying to figure out how to word that. I feel like he's really here.
I'm more here than I am
Yes.
in the winter. Anyway, I've been working on invasive species as a leader of the team for the last 10 years on the lake. We have a big volunteer team that tries to control milfoil, which is our big invasive species on the lake. And it started out with a small patch, 15 gallons of milfoil the first year. By 2022, despite our efforts, the volunteer efforts, putting in hundreds of hours a year, it had grown to cover 60 acres of the lake and over 400 gallons of milfoil in the year 2022. We realized we were overwhelmed that our volunteers could no longer keep up with the lake, and the lake would rapidly turn into Pawtuckaway Swamp rather than Pawtuckaway Lake. So we needed help. Fortunately, we were able to get a grant from the state to help control and mediate the milfoil. They came in and with some professional dive teams and with chemical control, were able to knock the amount of milfoil in the lake down quite a bit. 42 acres were treated. Now, the cost of that in 2023 was $47,000. They knocked the milfoil down significantly. Last year, 2024, we only found 30 gallons of milfoil in the lake, which is great news. However, we found milfoil at every location that it was found in before, just in much smaller quantities. So it's still there, it's still everywhere it was, but in much smaller quantities. So I suspect that in future years, despite the efforts of our volunteer dive team, that milfoil will continue to grow and be a bigger problem in the lake. So in probably 2, 3, 4 years, we're going to need another treatment like we did in 2023. And the state this time will not pay 100% like they did the first time. They only pay 100% one time. The next time around, depending on the amount of demand and the amount of funds the state has, it will pay between 0% and 50% as a maximum. So, you know, $47,000 a couple of years ago. I don't know what it will be in 2 or 3 years. I think it will be at least that, if not more. So the state will not pay, as I said, more than 50% and maybe nothing. So the lake may need help in another 2 or 3 years, and that's why I think this fund is important to keep the health, preserve the health and beauty of Pawtuckaway Lake as a resource for the town and also for all the people who live around the lake. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Okay, further discussion?
Michael Kelly, Deerfield Road. Apologize to everybody, hate to create a conflict, but I don't agree with this warrant article. I'd like to change the wording and reduce the sum to $1. Yeah, the budget committee for the last 4 years, like our town has.
Let me just,
you wanna read it?
so, yep.
Okay.
I have a motion on the floor to amend Article 17 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1 to be added to the invasive species prevention, Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second, Tom Bukevich. Go ahead, discuss.
The reason behind this is I feel like, first of all, let me thank the PLIA for all their work. Thank you for taking the milfoil out. I appreciate the lake. I love the lake. I'm glad it's part of our town. I don't know that this is something that we should be getting involved with as a town. We just saw on the previous warrant article, we have $18,000 that's going into building maintenance. In that fund, we're already about $100,000 short from what we need to maintain the buildings, what was on the latest capital improvement plan. I know we've had discussions at Budget Committee of how to find $10,000 for the police force so they can get protective vests. I don't think this is something that we should be doing as a town. We should take care of our buildings, our roads, our employees, and that's why I made this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Oh, we have someone headed down.
Deanne Decker, 11 Lakeview Drive. As the previous,
Your card, Mrs. Decker. I'm not sure you're registered voter. See, same rules for everyone.
and I'm number 1.
Yeah, I was a little bitter about that.
As a member of the PLIA and the longtime former Lake Coast manager for the lake, it's important for the people in town to realize that this is not just about the people who live on the lake. However, if milfoil and the other invasive species are not controlled, and it is the town's responsibility according to the state, because it's within our limits, so therefore it makes it our responsibility. But if the milfoil and the other invasives get so bad on the lake, it will impact property taxes and our evaluations. And if our evaluations go down, there's less money for the town to do the other things that we need to do in town. So please don't take away the support for the lake, thinking that it's not your problem, because it is a town problem and it will affect everybody eventually if the lake becomes a swamp.
Hello, Tom Bukevich, 2 Washington Lane. I have some other thoughts, but
I
just
see
to
your
address-
thumb glowing orange, but I can't
There you go.
It's fine.
So just some comments, what we just heard. She said that, the milfoil problem is within our limits, our town limits. Yes, it's true, our town does encompass that, but the Pawtuckaway Lake is bigger than 10 acres, which means the waters are state waters. Also, the comment about if housing values around the lake goes down, the tax base will lower, and the town will have less money available. That's not true. The town puts out whatever budget they want, we divide it by the tax base, we figure out the tax rate. That won't cost the town any money. Really, I think in previous years we've discussed this quite a bit at length and we've argued over it. It's been established, it sounds like this is great. This is invasive species and eradication, removal stuff, but it's not for all over town. It's not for the rivers and the streams and stuff like that. It's for Pawtuckaway Lake. And it's not for, invasive Japanese knotweed and emerald ash borer and woolly agalid on our hemlock trees. It's for milfoil in Pawtuckaway Lake. So it's a pretty limited spending on this. And the state park there, that I believe is the second biggest moneymaker for the state next to Hampton Beach Park. So they have plenty of money coming in that they can spend to take care of that lake. And keeping that lake clean would be very important to them to continue to have the profitable campers coming into that campground. So when we spend our own money taking care of that lake, that just tells the state that they don't have to spend money to take care of it. If we refuse to spend money on it, then the state is much more likely to step in and spend the money. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Dee, I'm just going to let Chris speak real quick because he hasn't had a turn yet.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Chris Evans here, number 61, again.
Thank you. And just your address for the record.
9 Martha's Way.
Thank you.
Pawtuckaway Lake is an amazing resource for this town. It's our environment, it's where we live. There are public beaches that people in this town can use. There's a public boat ramp that many of us use, whether you live on the lake or not. There's 580 homes or so on the lake, and honestly, a vast percentage of our property taxes are paid by lake homes. And there are other places where milfoil has become so invasive. I'm a real estate broker, by the way. Has become so invasive that it has lowered property values. I completely agree, and I completely disagree with Tom. There doesn't appear, the state does spend money on this. I don't think they pay any property taxes, but they have contributed to helping with the milfoil in the past and made contributions. There are people in the PLIA that invest hundreds and hundreds of hours. My neighbor goes out on his jet ski twice a week and for hours scuba diving, pulling up milfoil out of the lake. There's Neil. I'd like to say thank you for Neil. I see these guys in our little, I live on lake, in our little cove all the time, pulling up, diving, spending hours of their volunteer time. This is a small contribution relative to the vast amount of time these volunteers spend. I think one of the volunteers fitted up their own boat at their own expense, called a dash boat that sucks up the milfoil so that we can keep it under control. There are other adverse species in the lake, but the milfoil, most of the outbreaks are in kind of around the state park, and where the state is letting people come in. My boat has never gone to another water body. I haven't brought any milfoil in, so it's coming in from the state. We're just trying to keep a control of it, and yes, it would be great if the state did their part, but right now, we need some town resources and help too. Thank you.
Tom Duffy, 28 Tuckaway Shores Road.
Tom, give your voter card. Please say.
82. I'm also the current president of the Tuckaway Lake Association. I wanted to point out that the largest infestation that we treated, we only treated, I'm going to say 4 spots in the lake, not the entire lake, was in front of the town beach. That area particularly is very sensitive. It's low water, probably an average depth of about 4 feet, up in what we call the fundy part of the lake. And that area is also susceptible, and the beach has been closed due to cyanobacteria and other aspects that reduce the ability to use the waters. It was really like, we have a video of it, because we had a swimmer go through it with a GoPro, and it really did look like a forest of milfoil. So the other thing I'd like to point out is that the Invasive Species Fund is really for all the town. I don't think anybody's come forward with a request to treat knotweed, but we have other water bodies in the town. And those would also be able to draw on it should they become infected. If you look at Massachusetts, you'll see that most of the water bodies are hard to use because of the amount of milfoil in the water. Thank you.
Bonnie Winona McKinnon, 26 Garland Road. I don't live anywhere near Lake Pawtuckaway, but I'm here to speak for the lake. I think as a town, we have a history of supporting the efforts of the people who live there to keep the lake clean. And it's a resource for everybody. It's a definite plus for this town to have that lake, and to let it go would be a tragedy. I also want to underscore that that fund covers all the bodies of water in town, not just Lake Pawtuckaway. It just happens that Lake Pawtuckaway right now needs help, and I think we should give it to the lake because the lake serves us all. And it does definitely affect people's property assessments. And the people who live on the lake, you can ask any of them, they pay more taxes than most of us because they have a premium place to live. But if the lake goes down, their assessments will not stay as high as they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Sparky.
Tracy Bascom, 121 Stage. I move that we vote.
Okay, I'm just gonna, Dee's been standing for a long time, so I'm gonna let her.
Steve Morse, 69 Shore Drive. There's been talk about the state and what the state has done. Recently, the state proposed an expansion of their campground. The PLIA, as a group of volunteers, were almost powerless to do anything to stop that. Jointly with the town,
we brought this subject to the town, and the state held a meeting here with town officials, with area residents, and we were successful in getting the state to move those funds from expanding the campground to improving their restroom facilities, which some of them, I believe, are over 40 years old, and most of them had septic systems that were below standards. Together, the Pawtuckaway Lake Association and the town met with the state and did this. Jointly, we have a bigger footprint, we have a bigger voice if we act as a town instead of a lake association. I encourage all of you to support this article.
Steve Decker, 11 Lakeview Drive. So I just want to make a point of clarification on this warrant article. The fund that the money would be going into is the Aquatic Species Invasive Trust Fund. Therefore, these monies cannot be used for things that are not aquatic invasive, so we wouldn't be one of them. So I just want to make sure that this is worded correctly so that if it passes, it goes into the appropriate fund.
Okay, so are you proposing another amendment?
It shouldn't be an amendment, it should be a clarification because the trust fund is
The trust fund title is not correct.
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not an amendment, it's just a correction.
Okay, and I did have a motion after Dee spoke to move this question, and I feel like we've had enough conversation about it. All those in favor of not moving the question rather, but moving the amendment, say aye. All those opposed and would like to allow further discussion, say no. Raise your card high, please. Some of you just did plead the fifth, okay? Thank you. The ayes have it. So we are first going to address the amendment on the floor. All those in favor of the amendment to lower the amount from $10,000 to $1, raise your card, say aye. All those opposed, the motion fails. So there, Dee pointed out that the proper name of the account is the Aquatic Invasive Species Prevention and Eradication Removal. Is that correct?
I'm looking up the town meeting minutes right now.
It also could be that the name and the purpose are. First, gonna check that. Do you want to amend it just for clarity's sake, Deanne? It's really not.
I don't think it's necessary now.
This other account doesn't exist. The legal doesn't think it's necessary, but I'm gonna just quickly check it.
So the 2016 Article 13 was to see if the town will vote to establish an expendable trust fund under the provisions of RSA 3119-A to be known as the Invasive Species Prevention and Eradication Removal Fund for the purpose of protecting Nottingham's public water bodies. Furthermore, to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to place in this fund. And I do not see any amendment was made to change the title.
Okay, so the title is the same, but the purpose is for aquatic bodies, so.
No, it does not say aquatic,
Oh, I
it's
thought in the reading you just said.
Invasive Species Prevention and Eradication Removal Fund is the title.
No, for the purpose though of the fund was, you said.
For the purpose of protecting Nottingham's public water bodies.
So, there you go, so it's covered in the purpose. Okay, thank you. All right, pending no further discussion being allowed, anyone want to invoke Article RSA 40?
I really can't wait to make a motion to invoke RSA 40:10 on this article.
Thank you. All those in favor? All those opposed? Invoked RSA 40, oh, wise guys over there. Motion carries. Article 17 will be printed on the ballot as written. Article 18, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to hire a certified lake management engineering firm to study conditions to provide design solutions relative to reducing external and internal phosphorus loading and to implement any remediation projects to Pawtuckaway Lake. Further, to authorize the issuance of not more than $100,000 of bonds or notes in accordance with provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33, as amended, and to authorize the Select Board to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes and to determine the rate of interest thereon. Further, to authorize the Select Board to offset a portion of said appropriation by applying for a Clean Water Revolving Fund loan, it being understood that repayment of the loan may include up to 100% principal forgiveness. 3/5 ballot vote is required. The Select Board recommends this appropriation 5-0. The Budget Committee recommends this appropriation 5-2. The estimated tax impact is $0 per thousand of property valuation. We have with us today Pawtuckaway Lake Improvement Association Board President Tom Duffy to speak to this. He is also the government liaison for PLIA.
Hello again, 28 Tuckaway Shores Road, Nottingham, New Hampshire. It's hard to understand the process from the way that it's written. And I'd like to make an amendment to this motion. The amendment, and then I'll explain it. The amendment would read, the Pawtuckaway Lake Improvement Association is responsible for any and all interest due on the loan or notes issued.
I was wondering where that was.
Yeah.
Do you have it written down? Do you want to?
I have it written so I can submit it to you.
Can I? Yep, I'll just read it. So we have a motion on the floor to amend Article 18. I'm going to put it in right after the 100% principal forgiveness. The Pawtuckaway Lake Improvement Association is responsible for any and all interest due on the loan or notes issued.
We have.
Do I have a second for the motion? Chris Evans, right there.
In 2008, we received a grant from the NHDES.
So as a point of order, technically we now have to discuss the amendment first.
I'm speaking to the, am I speaking to the
Just
amendment?
the amendment, or do you want to?
Okay, I'll speak directly to the amendment.
Yeah, just speak to the amendment real
all right,
quick, and then we'll let them vote, and then we can speak to it.
So New Hampshire municipal bonds, tax-free bonds that are issued generally are right now at the rate of about 3 1/8. So we have, and we expect that this revolving loan, it won't be drawn on all at once. It will be drawn on to pay the engineers who do what's called a water body study and create a plan for the mitigation and the improvement and the protection of the water body. The last one we had was in 2008, and the state gave us $50,000, or we got a grant for $50,000. NHDES has recommended that we apply for this because the money does come from the feds through the Clean Water Act, and those people who achieve making proposals and then hiring the engineers generally, in the past, have received forgiveness of the loan. But the PLIA has set aside the monies for the interest for the next 3 years.
Okay, do we have anyone who'd like to make comment or question just on the amendment about adding that the PLIA will cover the interest?
Michael Kelly, Deerfield Road. I'm just getting a little bit lost. So if the PLIA is responsible for the interest of the loan, who's responsible for the principal? Does it say it's the town? I guess I don't understand how the financial
We can,
road works here?
I
Is that
think,
after
Tom,
the
yeah,
amendment?
Tom is gonna explain all of that
Okay.
after, so I just wanted to get the amendment taken care of.
Thank you.
Yep. Anything else further in regards to the amendment? All those in favor of the amendment, say aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Article 18 is now amended, and now I'm gonna allow Tom to speak to the rest of the mechanics of the article, and then Mike, if you wanna.
So with this warrant article, if this warrant article passes, what it will do, it will allow the town, the loan is made to the town. It comes from the Clean Water Act, it's made to the town. Should the town need to raise the money for it, this authorizes the town to float $100,000 worth of municipal bonds. That's why I mentioned what the interest rate was on it. So since the town is applying for the loan from through the NHDES, the town would be responsible for the principal of the loan if it's not forgiven. The history of these loans is that they are forgiven should we follow the procedures that are suggested within the loan application. So, and the reason that we made the amendment was because the loan and its repayment does not cover the interest. That's why the PLI is covering.
Tom, I'm just gonna let Mike go.
So if I understand this correctly, the town would be responsible for the $100,000 principal if it's not repaid. Yes. Okay. As a member of the town, I think this is really bad financial management. As I stated in regards to the last one article, sometimes we're scrapping for 10 grand to get protective vests for our police department. I don't think the town wants to get involved in the possibility of getting $100,000 in the fund for this. Would the writer of this warrant article be agreeable to change the wording to say that the PLIA would be responsible for the principal? I don't know procedurally what we need to do, but.
Unfortunately, the PLA is a board, and
So that wouldn't work?
yeah.
Okay, so it's my strong opinion that this is a bad idea for the town.
Although I said the answer specifically, no, but I could judge my Tom.
The loan is made to the town, so only the town can apply for it. PLA cannot apply for it.
He's asking if it'd be possible to change the wording to say that PLIA would be responsible for the loan if it wasn't forgiven.
That's what he's proposing.
Correct. And you're saying because it's addressed to the town that the PLIA couldn't.
Can I jump in, Don?
Yes.
Right. So, yes, the town has to be the loan applicant by design of these loans. This is very similar to the loan process that we used when we did the culvert mapping a few years back. It's the same exact thing. It's a loan, but it's really a grant. It has to, if you don't do the work, then that's the only possible way of not paying back. You don't get the money. So you get the money and you do the work. It's just, it's a weird process that they do, but it's basically a grant.
Hi, Tom Bukevich, 2 Washington Lane. I have a couple of related questions. So this warrant article says that it would be applying for a loan. I'm wondering, do these loans always get applied for, or do they get denied?
It could be denied, yes, that is true.
Do we know what roughly the probability of it is?
It seemed like we had a very strong probability of getting the loan.
Okay, and then if we don't get the loan, does this still authorize the raising of $100,000 then?
No.
Because the beginning says it'll vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 for this. It doesn't say contingent on getting that loan, does it?
Would you like to amend it, say that?
No, I'm wondering if that's what I'm reading.
Yeah, we're not going to, if we don't get the loan, we're not gonna spend $100,000.
But this doesn't restrict, this doesn't say that. Are you willing to amend it to say that if you don't get the loan that you won't spend, you won't raise it out of tax money?
Right. Again, do you, just ask, it doesn't say it, so do you want to add that?
I might want to do that. I
Okay.
have a further question. It says that repayment of the loan may include up to 100% principal forgiveness. What is the probability of getting 100% principal forgiveness?
If we get the loan, the probability is basically 100% that we'll get the forgiveness of the principal.
That's interesting.
That's why.
It's barely a loan then, huh?
Exactly, which is why I said it's.
It's a grant so long as you perform.
It is more, it's written as a loan, but it's basically a grant.
Okay, thank you. And then the final question is, so there's this, raise and appropriate $100,000 at the top of the warrant article, and then halfway down it says, further to authorize the issuance of not more than $100,000 in bonds. So is this really $200 in spending? It's $100,000 from the taxpayers raised and appropriated, and then we're also taking and going $100,000 into debt?
It's 100 total.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna
It's
add.
confusing. It's
It is
confusing.
Yes,
very
I would.
confusing wording there, but this was the prescribed wording from the state.
That's what I was
Alright.
just gonna say, do you want me to
I
more
would-
have the attorney address that as opposed?
Sure.
Instead of the wording, because I was curious. He's just what I created assurance. So yes, Tom, this is prescribed DRA writing, so it is just the $100,000.
Okay, does the lawyer have any recommendations on how to amend it to make the raise and appropriation contingent on the loan being approved?
Look, where would you add it? Probably best to just say at the very end that the funds, the appropriation is contingent upon the Board of Selectmen approving and receiving, applying and being approved for.
All right, I would like to make it the amendment that the lawyer suggested.
It's gonna make me write down.
Just take this and add it on the bottom.
So we have amendment on the floor to add, following the sentence, may include up to 100 principal forgiveness, contingent, should I say the appropriation? The appropriation is contingent upon the Board of Selectmen applying for and receiving the loan. Second, do I have a Tom Duffy? We have a second from Tom Duffy. All those in favor, do we have any discussion on that amendment? No? Okay. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Did you want to speak to that?
Gotta make it real short. Oh,
That was short.
Jill Eldridge, 130 Guile Road. I'm a conservation professional and also a professional grant writer. I've written and administered a number of state and federal grants, including from New Hampshire DES. So I just want to say from my professional experience, I can verify what I believe it was Mr. Decker was saying, that the terminology around these grants from the states is confusing, but that is how they work. They're essentially a work contract. You apply for the funds, you fulfill the contract with the work terms in them, and you receive the money back. It's confusing for people who are not in the field, but it's very standard procedure, and a number of other state agencies such as NRCS, their EQIP programs, which landowners here in town might be a little more familiar with, often also work these ways. So it's confusing for people who aren't familiar with it, but I'll verify that it's true in my professional experience.
Thank you. Nice to have a professional in the building.
Kathy Mayo, 131R Raymond Road. Just a question on...
You might want to lift the microphone. It's really terrible. Yeah, you have to really shout into it.
First, thank you. That information was very useful, I should just say. Just a question on Pawtuckaway Lake. Does it generate any revenue for the town of Nottingham? And if it does not, is that something anyone's ever sort of wanted to look at, so that maybe some of these costs wouldn't depend on the town as a whole, but those who actually use the lake? I guess that would be my question. And then also on the reverse side too, I do believe that the lake does cost us money sometimes as far as emergency services. So that's on that flip side. So it would be great if it did generate revenue for us, that it would alleviate some of these costs that we have.
Thank you. Yes. All right. Tom, there are a few more people in line, so
I
you
can
might
let
let
them
me
speak
have
first,
faith.
sure.
Chris Evans again, 61 Martha's Way. Does the town get income from the homes on the lake? Yes, there's about 580 homes on the lake, and if the average assessment is about 700,000, 800,000, then that's approximately $400 billion of tax base, and tax base pays taxes. So we pay a lot of taxes I live on the lake, so we pay a lot of taxes in the town, and I don't know if the state actually pays. They have a 5,000 acre parcel, and they generate a lot of income. I have no idea if the state actually generates income to the town. That would be nice if they did, because they're using our resources, but that's probably another subject. But yeah, there's a lot of taxpayer money paying for this.
Teresa Bascom, 121 Stage Road. My question, piggybacking on does the town get any monies, is not, I understand through the taxes, I'm not questioning that at all, but what about the surrounding towns? Do they contribute at all, the Deerfield and Raymond side, or those that use the lake and that are surrounding it? Are we the only ones that are putting money into preserving this nature beauty that we have. It's, they have camp, through the camps and the homes, it's not just strictly Nottingham all the way around. It is? Okay, my mistake, but thank you.
We can ask.
Hi, Tom Bukevich, Washington Lane. So just to say, the state does give the town a little bit of money. I think it's called payment in lieu of taxes, but I think it's like $2,000 or $3,000 or something like that. Anyways, my real question was, you know, this warrant article is authorizing the town to, you know, among other things, implement any remediation projects to Pawtuckaway Lake. I was wondering if you could give us some examples of what kind of remediation projects that we would be authorizing by voting for this. Thank you.
Tom, you want to take that?
The hiring of the engineers is to do a watershed-based plan. What the watershed-based plan does, similar to the 2008 plan that we completed, but unfortunately is now 17 years old, and limits our ability to raise money from other environmental groups because of the age of the plan. We are applying to update that plan. What the engineers do is they study the sources of runoff into the lake. They study the chemistry of the lake. We get a bathymetric study out of it, which talks about the different neighborhoods of the lake. There's actually 3 basins in Pawtuckaway. It's not one lake, it's 3 bodies that have been connected since they put the dams in 1824. The engineers spend about a year, 9 months to a year doing these measurements. They then make recommendations on how to improve the quality of the lake by offering, I should just talk, by offering solutions to control any of the debilitating influences on the lake. One of the big ones in Pawtuckaway is Pawtuckaway has it fills up very quickly because the source of the waters in the spring is runoff from tributaries. And those tributaries bring in a lot of the non-point source pollution is what they call it. Besides road salts and so forth, it brings in a lot of phosphorus. The whole upper part of the lake, the original Pawtuckaway Pond, and then also where Drowns Dam was, which is the northern dam, it's a 3rd water body there. Surrounding all of that for about 400 years has been farms. In fact, the farms are still there in many cases. And the habit of farmers at the time was to feed their crops by spreading manure on all the land. So as the tributaries come down through, it creates, it feeds the lake with nutrients. One of the many solutions that is usually proposed in these water-based studies is something called bioremediation. Bioremediation ponds are holding ponds.
Todd, can I just have a point of order real quick? Because I actually kind of have the same question. I think that
I'm happy to stop anytime.
Yes, Tom might have had. I know, no, his explanation is very good.
We can take it offline,
I just
Tom.
really wanted to wonder if your question was, this particular 100,000, is the $100,000 just to do this study to tell us what we need to implement it? Where, Tom, were you asking like if
warrant
the
article says
and to implement? That's what I wanted to clarify. Yeah. So the funds is not just for the study, but also to start implementing. Okay.
So it's very quickly in 2008 when we got the money from the state, we did implement. It reinforced banks that were falling into the tributaries. We did that up between Bardary Lane and Route 156, and then we built 2 large rain gardens, which are basically remediation ponds, but they look nice because of the way that they're constructed and so forth. And so it was about $35,000 for the engineers and about $15,000 for the remediation. So we hope that we'll be able to do some similar ratios, and it would really make a big impact, because we know where the problems are. We just need the engineers to reinforce them.
Perfect, thank you.
Can I ask just a quick follow-up while he's here? Is that done on the public land or is that done on private land?
They study public and private land, both state park land and then private land. You get permission from the people that live there to go on.
So we're not authorizing doing anything to people's private land without permission?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
I think you can.
Thank you. All right, I think that we have had enough discussion at this point. So, just had a all right. We already voted the amendment. Okay, so the Article 18 will move to the ballot as amended.
I'd like to make a motion to invoke RSA 40:10.
Thank you. Second? Charlotte Fife. Winner, winner. All those in favor of invoking 4010? All those in favor of invoking 4010? Thank you. All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, Article 19. I am just going to preface this with the town has been informed by legal counsel that this article as written is not permitted by the DRA and not legally enforceable. However, I'll read it. Article 19, to see if the town will vote to approve a temporary 2-year 6% tax cap to be effective during fiscal years 2026 and 2027. This temporary 6% tax cap will be in place of the current 4% tax cap that was approved by the town meeting in 2021. In accordance with the provisions of RSA 32:5, the temporary 6% tax cap is based on the actual amount of taxes raised by the prior fiscal year's operating budget, including any taxes approved by warrant article. The temporary 6% tax cap is needed to address serious budget shortfalls resulting from recent high economic inflation. By citizen petition, the citizen, well, they cannot withdraw, understands that this is not effective and no longer wishes to support it here. 3/5 ballot vote would be required. Questions? Good.
Sandra Jones, 25 Canard Road. I submitted this article. I'm wondering if it would be legal to amend it to remove the word temporary, the phrase temporary 2-year, and just have it approve a 6% tax cap instead.
So, temporary 2-year is the subject, so we cannot amend that.
Okay, that's what I want, that's the question.
Was she speaking to the article, or?
Yes.
Okay. Are you ready for a public question?
Oh, yes, you're good, public. Thank you for asking.
Skip Severance, just a point of order. If this isn't legal, do we vote here, or what do we do?
We don't vote here anyway.
Well, no, I vote to put it on the ballot.
Everything has to go on the ballot.
Okay.
We don't vote to put things on the ballot here. We only vote to amend things as they read on the ballot. So the only thing you could do was amend something here, but it's likely that anything we amend is probably not going to be enforceable. So you're welcome to try, as long as you're not changing the subject. But beyond that, we have no.
I'm just trying to figure out why it would go to the ballot if it's illegal.
Unfortunately, when it meets the requirements, when it comes to, when it gets its signatures and meets the deadlines, it has to.
Okay, good.
Sorry, if I could wave a wand, I would.
Shadi, 16 Camelot Court. So based on that question, can we amend the 6% to a 4.05%? Is that legal?
No, it doesn't matter what amount you put here, it's still gonna be unenforceable. So,
Okay.
you're
so-
welcome to, but it's not going to, so yeah, you certainly can amend it, but it's not gonna change. It's not the number, so in order for this to have been written in an effective way, really would be to rescind, the legislative body would have to put an article, or somebody would have to put an article together to rescind the current tax cap, and then a new article to create a new one, or a temporary one, whichever. So, because we have one in place, we cannot, the DRA won't recognize this, no matter what you change that amount to. If that makes sense.
So you're not gonna be able to put any footnote on this article to show that it's not legal?
Yeah, it's just not, no matter whether people vote for it or not, it has no effect. It's not legally enforceable. So it really doesn't matter. It's going on the ballot. Everybody votes for it, it doesn't matter. I mean, other than maybe being advisory to Budget Committee and Board of Selectmen for future, it is not legally enforceable. Okay. It doesn't matter how you vote for it, here or there.
Kathy Mayo, 131 Raymond Road. Just out of curiosity, how did it make it this far if it's not legal to begin with? Why is it even here?
Citizens can write articles without hiring an attorney to review them. It's not till they're presented by the deadline or whatever that they then get a legal opinion. By then the date's already passed that they, correct?
Oh, so it's not reviewed prior, so that we don't get this far and now we've wasted this amount of time for not.
Unfortunately, yes.
Is there a way to change that process?
Citizens welcome to submit something ahead of time and ask for legal review. Does that happen? Is that allowable?
My understanding is that for a citizen's petition article, they could hire their own attorney to make sure that it would maybe be legal, but I don't think the town is responsible because the taxpayers would be paying for those attorney fees.
Oh, I understand that, but as a town, there's not a process
For the
Process is the
town
state.
to.
The process is the state, so it's not.
Just, okay, thank you.
So just on this, could it be amended that after the end of word, it's just added, this is not legally enforceable, and then hopefully we'll just get voted no instead of creating another primary?
Again, it really doesn't matter.
Okay.
So we can add circus monkeys or peanuts to be served to it. It really is not.
Okay.
It's gonna appear. It's gonna get voted on. It has zero. So.
And Madam Moderator, just to clarify, there will be information on the town website about all the warrant articles and information from the town, like the PowerPoint that we have here. And so all of this information for the legal review will also be there, so hopefully taxpayers will take a look.
Okay, we're gonna move along.
Madam Moderator, I vote for 40:10.
Thank you, Mr. Frank Gray. Second by Charlotte Fife. All those in favor of invoking Article 4010. All those opposed. Motion carries. Article 20, the residents of Maple Ridge Road formally requested through this petition per RSA 674:40-A, the town of Nottingham's acceptance of Maple Ridge Road. Maple Ridge Road has been developed to town standards and has been approved by the town's engineering firm. With this acceptance, the ownership of this road will be transferred to the town of Nottingham by citizen petition, majority vote required. Do I have any citizen here who would like to speak to this? Any of the petitioners? Yes, come on, step to the microphone.
Hello, Tonio Beltran of 117 Maple Ridge Road. This is my card. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to.
in this session to speak to why I think it should be accepted. Am I allowed to do that? Okay, so the reason why this would be great to be accepted is that our road, I'm a resident of that road, so it benefits me if it's accepted public. This road is heavily used as a cut through. I see it all the time. I see neighbors cut through our road. I've seen town vehicles cut through our road. I've seen buses cut through our road. And when there was a fallen tree on the dirt side of Case Road, the uptick in traffic on our road was very high. I would argue that this road should be considered an emergency bypass road. It was turned down. That's all right. I respect that. But we would appreciate if the town would accept this road as public. We also welcome people to use our road. We want people to use our road. We have a heavy uptick in trick-or-treaters that use our, they come to park on our road to use it for trick-or-treating, and we accept that, and we would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Comments or questions from the public? All right. Article 20 will be printed on the ballot as written.
I'd like to make a motion to invoke RSA 40:10 on Article 19.
Do I have a second?
Article 20, sorry.
Senator Jones, all those in favor, say aye. All those opposed? The ayes carried. Article 21, to see if the town will vote to censure the law firm of Upton and Hatfield for its poor handling of the town's legal affairs as town attorney by citizen petition. Majority vote required. Petitioner Doug Bates is with us to speak to the article.
Doug Bates, 30 Lamprey. This was an easy petition to get signed. I had people calling me up saying, I want to sign that. There are a lot of people who think Upton and Hatfield should have been fired a long time ago, and they were upset that Upton and Hatfield was not fired. They were given a face-saving way out of an RFP process, and they want to correct this.
Cammy Berger Leshner, 31 North River Lake Road. I'm an attorney, for those of you who don't know me, a labor and employment lawyer, and I want to speak to this motion because it's disgusting in my mind.
Yeah, put the microphone closer to you. Really kind of have to shout into it.
I want to speak to this today because I think it's pretty disgusting, frankly. It doesn't serve the interests of the town at all. We're not a censoring body, so it will have no legal effect. It really is only, the purpose of it is to be a public spanking for a law firm that, frankly, led to us prevailing in a legal matter. Reasonable minds may disagree all day long on the underlying facts of the Vilchock matter, and I understand that. In my opinion, most of the disagreement comes from not really understanding the underlying facts, but what is not up for dispute is that the town did prevail in court. And as far as I know, we also avoided liability for other legal actions from the complaining employees, which is something that should not be overlooked when we're talking about legal fees and expenses to the town. What this will do to Upton and Hatfield is nothing. It will just publicly shame them. What could it do to the town potentially that I think we all need to really consider is what will it do when we're looking for qualified legal representation if attorneys and law firms know that they could represent us, serve our interests, prevail on our behalf, and still be publicly shamed for the express purpose, as Mr. Bates has said, of trying to damage their reputation so other towns will know not to hire them. This is very dangerous for us. It doesn't serve our interests. It accomplishes nothing. If we're unhappy with representation, we're free to seek other representation. We can move on. But the bottom line is, we prevailed. We won. They advised us wisely. The investigation process, whatever your feelings are about the Vilchocks, which I understand is a hotly debated matter, including by me. But we came out on top here, and we should not be trying to tarnish the reputation of an entire law firm out of spite, which is what this is, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Thomas Butkevich, 2 Washington Lane. I have a question. First, I would just like to ask the town attorney, are you from Upton?
Yes, you can direct your questions to me.
I can direct my questions to whoever I like. I would like to ask...
Tom, the rules of this meeting are that we speak through the moderator. And I know you do not like that, but that is the rules of every town meeting and town SB2, and we're going to follow the rules because we're a civilized community. So please You don't like me, you don't like my rules, I understand, but please, for the sake of your community, please.
Do you know who else doesn't like those rules? Multiple U.S. federal
Tom.
courts of appeals.
Tom,
You are risking another lawsuit to this town. Can I tell?
Tom, no.
Okay, I have a question. I'll direct it through you, just for fun. Is the lawyer currently present here, the town attorney? Are they from Upton and Hatfield or from the new one?
I introduced her as the attorney from Upton Hatfield, and I've
Okay.
answered that question from you earlier before, yes.
So let's kind of establish whether or not they're competent attorneys. Ma'am, are you familiar with?
Tom, again, you are not gonna have direct attacks or speak to the attorney. Do you have, the rules are printed in the room, does Mr. Bukevich have a copy of them?
Is it possible to print unconstitutional rules?
Tom, do you wanna have a seat, or do you wanna would you like the floor to make your point?
Okay, I would like you to ask an opinion from the town attorney so that we can gauge whether or not she's competent.
Tom,
I would like to know.
Tom, please take a seat now.
No.
We're done. Tom, you're out of order. Please take a seat, or I'm gonna have our officers remove you.
I think I kind of want to be removed by the officers because prohibitions on directed speech is wildly unconstitutional by multiple law firms. I've explained this to the town administrator, and she assured me that future meetings would be conducted in
Tom,
accordance
I do
with
not
First
fall
Amendment
under the town, nor the
protections.
rules of this meeting do not fall under town administrator, should not put that on her.
You took an
Okay,
oath to the
please,
Constitution.
please
That
have-
you,
yes,
your rules
please.
fall under the
Mr. Bukevich
Constitution.
can leave the meeting, please.
Why do you want town to see this?
I apologize. Again, these are the rules of our meeting. We have them for a reason. It is not to censure anyone. It is not to violate anyone's right. It is to keep order so that we can conduct business in a polite and fair way. All right. Any other discussion? Okay. Article 21, seeing that there's no further discussion, it'll move to the ballot as written.
I'd like to make a motion to invoke RSA 40:10 on Article 21.
Thank you. Need a second? Mary Bates? All those in favor, invoking? All those opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Article 22, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $120,000 for highway reconstruction and maintenance on Stevens Hill Road from Deerfield Road to the existing pavement. This is a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7 and will not lapse until the work is complete or not later than 1 year after the end of the fiscal year 2025, whichever occurs earlier. By citizen petition, majority vote required. I spoke to petitioner Dick Morris, who drafted this article due to the redundancy that he recognized. He no longer supported the article nor wished to speak to it. I don't know if there are any other petitioners in the room that would like to speak to it. All right, do we have any discussion from the floor? Sorry to miss you.
Skip Severance, 340 State Road. I assume the whole reason for this petition article is because Stevens Hill Road in this particular section has not been accomplished through the other means, so this is the way to do it. To quote-unquote ensure that it gets done.
Yes, as I understand from conversation last year and this year, that there was concern that it's such a, that because the article failed with all the other roads lumped
Right.
together, they wished to isolate themselves as it was important to
Yeah, cool.
get this done.
Thank you.
Further discussion? No? Any amendments from the floor? All right. Article 22 will be printed on the ballot as written.
Madam Moderator, 40:10, 40:10 on Article 22 as well as 12.
Oh, did I not?
No, we
Oh,
You
yeah,
left
that's right.
12 open
Okay,
and 10
let's entertain one at a time.
Okay.
I have a motion to invoke RSA 40:10 on Article 22. Do I have a second? Charlotte Fife. All those in favor? All those opposed?
Madam Moderator, I'd like to make a motion to invoke RSA 40:10 on warrant
Jeff. Jeff Morrison, second. All those in favor of invoking 4010? Aye. All those opposed? All right, we will no longer discuss Article 12 or Article 22. They will both move to the ballot as printed or amended. Article 23, shall we, under the provisions of RSA 32:5B, account for inflation and changes in the town's population by adopting the formula provided in the RSA for calculating the tax base to which the tax cap is to be applied. This year's base equals last year's base times 1 plus the change in the municipal cost index times this year's population divided by last year's population. Is that correct? Is that a divided by or just a slash? Okay, just making sure. By citizens petition. 3/5 ballot required. Petitioner Doug Bates is with us. Would like to speak to that.
When we adopted the tax cap several years ago, the RSA did not allow us to adjust it for changes in inflation. Everybody knows inflation has big budget impacts upon you. It has a big budget impact on the town. The RSA has been changed since we adopted the tax cap to allow it to be adjusted for inflation. So this would allow it to be adjusted for inflation and changes in the town's population, which is how the RSA says we have to do it.
Thank you. Questions, comments, reports? Okay.
Sandra Jones, Kenneth Road. I understand how we determine the inflation rate. I don't understand how we determine the increases in population because a census is only done every 10 years. So I'm wondering if it says from this year's to last year's. Does someone have an answer to that?
It actually goes into further clarify that you can get that information from the Bureau of Economic Affairs and Statistics. And I'm probably hacking the name of that agency, but there is census data that's put out on an annual basis that we can obtain that information from. It's not going to be, I don't know how specific to Nottingham it will be, but it is something to work off of sooner than the 5 years that we get.
It struck me that that was kind of a non-enforceable.
Agreed.
It works, I guess.
Yes, this one was reviewed by legal counsel as well and deemed enforceable. Oops. Good save, Mary, good save. Thank you, Judy. That's Eddie's fault. I don't know where Eddie is, but. I see you, Eddie.
Shawnee, 16 Hemlock Court. Question about municipal cost index. Is that available to us? Like, where do we find that, and how often is that changed year to year? Is it month to month? I don't know how that works.
Municipal tax caps are published by the state and federal government. They change on a month-to-month basis. And then there's a year-end average that's given on a per-annual basis.
Okay, so the budget committee who creates the budget, will you pick a month to do this, or will it be an end of the year calculation
I
that
think
you
it's
utilize?
based on the per annum, so the year-end average from the prior year to, well, from 2 prior years to the current year, and projecting that out into the future year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Kelly, Deerfield Road, a couple of questions for clarification, if we can even answer them. The first is, who would be responsible for calculating that? Would that be yourself, Ellen, or the board of selectmen, or budget committee? It seems like a lot to draw together. And the second question is, Mr. Mr. Bates, have you done, do you know what that number would work out to for this year, for example?
Can I first get the answer to the first question? Do we know who would be responsible for calculating that?
I would assume it would be the budget committee in concert with the town administrator.
Cool. And do you want to ask
And
Doug?
then, do you have a number what it would be for this year?
I do not know about the population change, and I looked at the municipal cost index in November when I wrote this, and that would have added 3.8.
So I think the answer, if you didn't have a microphone, it was 3.8 approximately for this year, so about what we are at. All right, thank you.
Well, good job. All right, further questions, comments? All right. Pending no further discussion, Article 23 will be written on the ballot as, will be printed on the ballot as written. Anyone? Anyone want to vote 4010?
Yes, I'll make a motion to,
Sorry, were you on Chitter Tanner because you wanted to add something to the conversation?
No, sorry, trying to explain the calculation.
Okay, gotcha.
I'd like to make a motion to invoke RSA 40:10, Article 20.
Second, Charlotte Fife. And my husband's over here seconding now. We're in trouble. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Article 24, shall the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 for the purpose of producing, printing, and mailing the volunteer community newsletter to Nottingham residents? This sum of this appropriation is to be offset by advertising revenues and donations received for this purpose. This is by citizen, a majority votes required. This was a citizen petition warrant article. The select board recommends this appropriation 3 to 1 with one abstaining. The budget committee does not recommend this appropriation, 1 to 6. The estimated tax impact is 1 cent per thousand of property valuation, and petitioner Charlotte Fife is here to speak to it.
And again, Charlotte Fife, 85 Deerfield Road. Ticket. Just a quick explanation. A warrant article that established the community newsletter was passed by the town voters in 1999. And since that time, the Nottingham community newsletter has been printed and mailed bi-monthly to all Nottingham households. The printing and mailing costs have been supported by the town in fluctuating amounts under the general fund. Executive account number 01-4130.10-400 under newsletter. In the past 2 years, offsetting revenue from the sale of advertising has averaged $3,200 annually. During the 24 budget cycle, the amount of funding for the newsletter was cut in half, from $8,000 to $4,000, and that was due to the constraints imposed by the default budget and the 4% tax cap. So in May of 2024, the last bi-monthly issue of the Nottingham newsletter was printed and mailed. No funds have been appropriated for the newsletter line item for this year. Therefore, this petitioned warrant article was submitted to gauge the desire of the community to continue in printed format or not. And that really is the intention. There's been a lot of feedback that the newsletter volunteers have received. The majority of newsletter volunteers felt that there's great value in having a printed and mailed newsletter. Others do not, and so this puts it to the voters. Do you wish to add that or not?
Thank you, Charlotte. Any public comment, question?
Kathy Sinfo, 23 Little River Road. I'd like to speak in favor of the newsletter because I think it's important. It's a community thing. It makes you feel good to see that your town cares about you. And I think there are a lot of people that don't go on the computer to look up something like that, but they enjoy having it, and then they have what's going on in town, what's happening. And I think it's also good for the businesses in town and local that advertise in there, and then people are aware of who's there. Thank you.
Further public comment, question? All right, seeing no further discussion, Article 24 will be printed on the ballot as written.
I'd like to make a motion to invoke RSA 40:10.
Do I have a second? I saw Owen Frangray, his hand fly up there. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carried. We will discuss Article 24 further. Article 25, shall the town modify the provisions of RSA 72:37-B, exemption for the disabled from property tax based on assessed value for qualified taxpayers to be $121,000. To qualify, the person must have been a New Hampshire resident for at least 5 years, own the real estate individually or jointly, or if the real estate is owned by such person's spouse, they must have been married for at least 5 consecutive years. In addition, the taxpayer must have a net income of not more than $46,000, or if married, a combined net income of not more than $58,000, and own net assets not in excess of $245,000, excluding the majority of the value of the person's residence. By citizen petition, majority vote required. I had Petitioner Sandra Jones or Peter White. Would you like to speak to this?
No,
Nope, you didn't. I just saw your name on there. All right. Anyone, or any petitioners in the room who would like to say anything? All right.
I can speak to it.
Was that a little too?
I considered putting in an article and then deferred to this one that was already there, but I very much support this. It's very much needed for inflationary reasons, that people who are at an income of $46,000 and $58,000, I'm wondering how they buy groceries, never mind pay their taxes. So this will definitely make a boom. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to ask a question, make a comment? All right, seeing no further discussion. Oh, sorry. Might be fast.
Barry Angus, 91R Priest Road. I just have a question. I agree with this. The very first statement actually applies to this and to 26. It says it's based on the assessed value for qualified taxpayers to be $121,000. Is that a minimum, a maximum? I didn't really understand it.
So the $121,000 that's the exemption amount. So let's say your property is assessed at $200,000, you're only going to be taxed on the balance, less that $121,000. So presently, right now, the disabled exemption is offered at $98,700 is exempt from that tax base. So this would be increasing it to $121,000. Does that make more sense?
It does once you explain it.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any way we could? Sometimes people say they read these warrant articles when they're at the voting booth and don't really understand.
I know that we have some explanations online. Is it possible to address the citizen petition articles as well, or you wouldn't do that as a, no, these are citizen petitions. So the citizen can, somebody, what was that?
It's prescribed by statute, the language.
Yes, but she's meaning like an explanation somehow for voters somehow. We can chat.
When I read this, I said, oh, your house can only assess at $121,000. I'm like, so who will get this?
Right.
Nobody.
Yeah. The language is prescribed by law, so unfortunately it is confusing. You're welcome as a petitioner or any of the petitioners to sort of explain that further. We can chat too about informative only documents, maybe outside the ballots, outside the election area on election day as well, as long as it doesn't election year. So, all right, thank you.
again. Did I understand that, did I just hear that there is presently an existing exemption of 97,000 out there, and that this is merely upping that to modern, today's standards? Perhaps a suggestion might be to make note of that right in here, that to change the existing exemption of 97,000 to 121, to adjust for inflation or whatever, that might help in clarifying this.
Okay, would you like to make a motion?
I think I'd like to make that motion.
All right. So this is one of those warrant articles that's prescribed by law, so actually we cannot, so.
Right, because
We cannot amend it, yes, so it can only read as it's written.
I think it would be helpful to have a little explanation behind that, to say that it is an existing.
And again, I encourage anyone who supports it to maybe make up some sheets that we can discuss where we can pass those out to the community. All right, further conversation? Oh, seeing none, Article 25 will be printed on the ballot as written.
Madam Moderator, before we go on down.
Thank you, Owen Frank Ray. Second from Matt Sherlin. All those in favor of invoking Article 4010? All those opposed? Motion carries. We will not discuss Article 25. Article 26, shall the town modify the provisions of RSA 72:39-A for elderly exemption from property tax in the town of Nottingham based on assessed values for qualified taxpayers to be as follows. For a person 65 years of age up to 75 years, $121,000. For a person 71 years of age up to 80 years, $170,000. For a person 80 years of age or older, $220,000. To qualify, the person must have been a New Hampshire resident for at least 3 consecutive years, own the real estate individually or jointly, or if the real estate is owned by such person's spouse, they must have been married for at least 5 consecutive years. In addition, the taxpayer must have a net income of not more than $46,000. Or if married, a combined net income of less than $58,000 and own net assets not in excess of $245,000, excluding the value of the person's residence. By citizen petition, majority vote required. Given our hands and seal this 21 day of January in the year of our Lord 2025 and cause to be posted as required. Any petitioners in the room who would like to speak to this? Pretty similar to the last one. Any community questions or comments? All right, seeing none, the article will be printed on the ballot as written.
What is that? I don't even know how to say this right anymore.
Second from Matt Sherland. All those in favor of invoking Article 4010? All those opposed? Motion carries. Do we have the planning board chair with us to speak to the zoning articles? If not, okay, since Articles 2 through 6 do not fall under, amending them does not fall under the business today, and we don't have the planning board chair with us, we will not be discussing those. Thank you for attending session 1 of our annual business meeting. The second session of our annual meeting will be held at the Nottingham Community Center here on Tuesday, March 11, 2025. The polls will be open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can fold chairs. We'd appreciate it. I will now entertain a motion to close the meeting. Donna Davis, second from all those in favor of closing the meeting.